Hello and welcome to the TheSeahawksNest stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and it is day 2 of free agency, though of course unofficially the day 2 of the legal tampering period. And it has been one where we entered in as Seahawks fans many times facing situations where you had high hopes, money to spend in the back pocket. Yeah, you can feel that thick fat wallet in your back pocket. And you go, here we go, baby. No. This will be the year. This will be the year we actually let it roll. This is the year that we actually don't just have the chips in the Vegas casino in our bag, but we actually push the chips out there into the middle a little bit. But it does not sadly seem to be that we're going to get a bit of a different direction from your Seahawks this year as it approaches free agency, as it's definitely fitting more to form in how it has in the past. And perhaps the team can find some success with that, but can't overlook the fact that I know that a lot of fans were really hoping that this might be the year from a 1-2 punch standpoint of both having the money to spend and then having the clear position that you really needed to address to not only try to get a dominant star type player shooting for the moon, but to just get the position to a workable state. Let's just not forget that this interior offensive line, especially, and when Abraham Lucas has been out at right tackle, it has been a crap show in so many ways. And just, it's not about being good or above average. It's just get us to league average. It's kind of where you're looking to do. And I think for a lot of Hawk fans out there was a lot of hope here that within these signings, you would target that within it and be able to put the money in the right place to where at least get to a functional state, but not looking like exactly that's the way this is going to go, as we do have a lot of the interior offensive linemen flowing off the board as we sort of speak here. Will Fries was the guy who the Seahawks looked like they had targeted up last night, dead in their sights. Everything seemed to be good to go. We were hearing rumors of all he needed to do was come to Seattle and do the physical. And then the Vikings came in and threw down a stack of wad of bills, I guess, today, or added, I guess, really what happened was they added the 4th year to the deal. Seahawks were not willing to go past the 3rd year of the deal. This is where some of this conversation is going to get interesting. And so you have a situation then where you're adding that, you're not willing to go to that 4th year of the deal. Why? They came in and gave that, you didn't. So you have both of the 2 centers now off the board, and Ryan Kelly and Drew Dahlman. You've got Will Fries, one of the main guards, a lot want to see target off the board. You do have Mekhi Becton, and you do have still Tevin Jenkins, so it's not all completely lost here as far as not being any potentiality to upgrade it. But absent that, then the eyes are really going to probably have to shift on into the draft and the hope that you can really hammer it in the draft and really find the returns from the interior of that offensive line to get this into the right state of mind of things, or the right shape of things, I guess I should say. Which is, as we've seen in the past, being down this road once before, going to be a bit of a hard road to make that work, at least for the coming up future. You're definitely building a good, solid young line at that point by investing a lot of talent into it, a lot of young talent, but there's not going to be a lot of certainty there then with it on the other side of that. So we find ourselves kind of in this place. The one thing that does come out of this from the Will Fries thing is the 4th year of the deal. Why on this one were you not willing to go to the 4th year of the deal? And I'm hearing some stuff in the background here from people about what it is on this, and wasn't a big Will Fries guy. It's not even really about the player at that point with it. It's really just about what the determination was, why you went down this road to not do it, why you weren't willing to go that 4th, as you obviously like this guy quite a bit, fit to the scheme, player that you think you'd like, but you weren't going. It was a matter of the injury, could have been. Was it John doesn't like to put 4th year on a contract in free agency? Could have been. There is also some rumblings we're maybe hearing about this as far as maybe ownership coming in on this as well, or at least the people representing the ownership coming in on this as well. Maybe an unwillingness to add that 4th year of the deal. And the one thing I'm wondering a little bit maybe organizationally with this team right now, with a potential sale impending, is if not, there is a bit of maybe a soft mandate to keep everything down, sort of a 3-year deal mode, and only to go to a 4th year if really are driven to have to do so, because they want to make sure that the books are clean for whatever new owner's taking over. You don't want to have a new ownership take over and they're invested in all these guys in the books down the line. And this could make some sense. I don't know for sure on this. I'm just speculating on some of what could drove this. Again, it could be as much as just they didn't want to go to 4th year for Freeze, who only did have a small sample size of starting snaps out there as a player. And I was never really big on Will Freeze, quite frankly. This has been more to me about the miss of a Ryan Kelly or a Dahlman, where you could have really at least nailed down a center position. It's still not over with. We can still find some guys out there here. It's not quite done, but it is getting down to the lean area of things, where once you miss out on these next two guys, the next down are the Dalton Risners and whatnot, who are maybe functional. Or Kevin Zeitler, 35 years old. Is he still going to be able to give it a go with that at that age? I don't know. That might be a little bit of a leap on that one to think that would happen. And again, not to bang this drum too often, but we have been down this road before, right? With the super aged vets on the offensive line on their last legs, and it doesn't work out particularly well. I am hopeful. I'm hopeful this team still can find some pathways here with it, but I do get worried a little bit if the ownership is impeding our general manager in that way and not letting him be competitive with the other teams on the open market in this fashion. When you do look at this Vikings team this offseason, they had about the same amount of money that the Seahawks had to spend. Look at all of the players that they've brought in versus look at what Seattle's done. Now, granted, a big chunk of Seattle's costs got to go over there to Sam Darnold, and he's taking a big hunk of that. But you go, boy, are we restricted here a little bit in this? Is that a little bit of what's happening here within this? And I don't know. It's just something maybe to ponder a little bit within this. But it is also, I think, where if you do lose out on a guy like Bector or Tevin Jenkins, there's really not much of an answer. I don't know how hard you want to try to draw then to go for secondhand parts so that you can make this team in your ideology hopefully good next year, which would be kind of hard to do, which is relying on the aging parts, relying on the draft picks that will be so young and still developing and still finding their way. There's a pathway to there for success in the immediacy at that point in 2025, but I just keep coming back to more and more of this is just showing you and telling you to take that step back that I've advocated for. And it's not going to be a fun one for fans. I know even today we're going to have a lot of people going off on this and not happy about what they're seeing out there. And I understand and get that frustration. I'm right there with you in so many ways. But at the same point in time, if you are going to go down the road, take the road all the way is what I would say on this one. And they are definitely pretty far along the path. If we were to predict what probably comes next, if you're not going to land a Jenkins or you're not going to land just a alignment of good value, let's say, we'll just kind of put it in general terms, is that if you're not going to land that, then hold on one sec here, folks. Sorry, I had to go get something there. If you're not going to land that, then just stay on down this line and let's just keep it going. You know what I mean? Let's just keep it rolling on this way and make it go there. So we'll see where you guys are at today. Keep the discussion open to you guys. There's not a lot really going on right now in general terms on this. So if you guys... We can kind of go a little bit on with this, but I mean, there's not really been any moves. And if there's not really much here to talk about with this, I'll tap with you guys a little bit today. But quite honestly, I don't want to just be floating in negative waters and it being a complete bitch moan session, where it just turns into like kind of have to play therapist for a little bit on it, where it's, I get where all of it's coming from. I'm not pushing back against the frustration. I can just only languish in it for so very much long. It is kind of what it is on that. And I'm with the frustration that I'm seeing and feeling out there in the Seahawks universe on this, where it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's why I'm trying to find some reasoning as to where they're standing on this. I would have really liked if they were not going to be jumping in on the market of these offensive linemen and putting together a real functional line for this next quarterback quickly, to more have gotten the quarterback that wasn't a long-term investment, that wasn't going to cost a lot of money, that would have been more like the cheap kind of bridge quarterback. But I understand that that's probably a hard line to go. You probably have a hard time selling that to the locker room. I don't know how you have an easier time of selling it to the locker room when they know you're just going to be trotting out a bunch of youngsters and young offensive linemen out there and old aging vets and saying, yeah, this will work. I think the players will know as well as anyone anyway on that. I don't think that they're dumb in that way. And so, I think you kind of have to think, well, we'll kind of trick them into thinking they'll maybe be good this year. They'll know it. They'll know it. I'm like, yeah, we've got second rounders and third rounders and young guys all over the board on this offensive line, a couple good tackles. And this, we'll see though. We'll see. But I'm not down on the team completely as much as maybe some of the others. If it does sound like that, I wanted to step back. This team's doing kind of what I asked them to do in that way. I think that the long term of this is that it's going to pay off. The short term of it is it's going to frustrate the hell out of a lot of people and maybe even piss some people off. And I again, completely understand that, but I still do think it is the proper approach in the long term, because you're not scrambling. You're not frantically trying to search through the darkness for something to save you a little bit. Like, okay, hold on. Let's just wait till the light comes back around on this one. We'll see where you guys are at, though, here with this today. We've got PGZ in the house. What's up, PGZ? It's good to see you, my man. He said, hey, gifting out here five subs right off the gate. I really, really, really do appreciate that for doing that, PGZ. Great way to start us off here today. So Century Seahawk, Larry Williams, Chris Osmond, Scott Clark, and Troy Peterson. You have all been gifted memberships by PGZ, and we will be going this next Saturday. If you are a member of the channel, look out. I'm going to try to get it posted out here Wednesday or Thursday. But for Saturday, we're going to do a call-in show. So if you are a member of the show, we're going to have you want to come have a discussion and talk about these very subjects we're talking about today, or John Schneider or this team or this direction, good or bad. We'll be doing the call-in show there on Saturday for members of the show. So thank you for gifting those memberships out there, PGZ. You're the man. And Troy, Scott, Chris, Larry, Century Seahawk, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard as a member. Brian Myers, we missed Juwan Jennings and Patrick Ricard. Disappointing. Yep. Yeah. I thought Juwan might have a little bit more run here. Seems like, though, the team does seem to be Brian in the spot of wanting to hold on to Noah Fant. And with Juwan and Noah, they would essentially be playing that kind of same position of sort of that H-back type tight end. A little bit of inline stuff, but mainly H-back. And so a bit of redundancy there if you're going to keep Fant. And I'm sure that John, too, probably likes this draft a lot when it comes to tight ends. And that's a bit of the driving force, I would reckon. Mr. Gain, well, look at who made it to the live stream before it started. Woohoo! Let's go. Let's go, Mr. Kane. That said, I can't believe that I'm bored this year during free agency. John is not acting like his job is in jeopardy. It's where I've wondering a little bit on this, on the ownership side of this, because what would John feel more comfortable than ever in his job, and a lack of sense of urgency is being told, for instance, you can't put a fourth year on a free agent because we need to keep the books clean for a potential sale down the line. I'm not saying that I know that for sure. I'm starting to wonder some of these questions in my mind on some of this that just doesn't seem to add up or make a lot of sense. It's a little bit like DePoto over in baseball, where DePoto needs to go spend money. It's obviously everyone in the sport, every player in the sport's practically screaming at them to do it, and yet they won't do it. And you go, well, why are they doing dumb things that just seem so counterintuitive to trying to win? There's probably a force at play over the top that is starting to weigh in. Nicholas, every other damn team in the NFL is signing O-linemen, but not us. Very true. Brian says, yeah, the freeze miss was a bit painful. Yeah, that one hurts, man. It hurts because you guys seem to have it really close. He seemed to want to come here by all accounts, and Vikings got us. Thank you, PGZ, man. I really appreciate that. You're very kind for that. Very, very kind. And we're going to get those memberships definitely expanded here as we go through the offseason. Like I said, we'll get that Saturday show, but I want to keep these going out to you guys for dropping that extra dime every month being a member. Me in the house. What's up, bro? Good to see you. HHG, hello, hello, hello. Brian E says, oh, thank God you just interrupted debate on the CR. What a clown show. Well, yeah, it's a little lively today in the fandom. It's a little lively. Formerly rebuild this team. Host was Glaze and Gino. Now look what happened. Sugar Times Rush, you and Hawkblogger are the best, most level-headed local podcasters. Appreciate it. Well, thank you, man. I mean, I'm definitely as guilty as anybody is getting emotional on this stuff, and I promise you guys that I know that it's probably a little bit more appreciated to keep things as much in tap as we can with the getting out of the control emotionally and all that. But I definitely try to be aware of it. I know it's not always comes off the best when you're in freak out mode on this kind of stuff, even if you're kind of feeling that internally. And I'm not freaking feeling freak out right now. I'm not. Because I can't freak out about the thing that I asked for. I think there was a lot of the push of the fan base this offseason that was like, we're got to go get to 25. Let's go. 25 is now. 25 is going to be lit. 25 is on point, on lock. And I'm over here going, yeah, maybe we just sort of push it on to 26. And so it's not a popular outlook on my part, but then it doesn't also, I can't take that and advocate for that and come back and be like, I don't like that you didn't go for 25. I'd be a hell of a hypocrite to be doing that type of stuff. But I appreciate that. And Hawk Blogger is a very level-headed and does really great work. It's been really cool to see him go and be able to take that same leap I was able to take, where you do this full time and embrace it fully, and it really takes to you. I loved the questions he was asking this year at the press conference, certainly above what we had typically been asked by Seattle reporters in the past at times. And so I liked it. It was good. But thank you. I appreciate that. Hopefully I can stay that way today. Dune Moose says, what kind of injury was Freeze coming back from? He had a fractured tibia. But those tend to be ones that you can heal back from 100%. If anything, you can come back on kind of better than 100%. For life, it's like deja vu all over again and again and again and again and again. We are doing a little bit of a Groundhog Day when it comes to free agency. And I don't like it. It's either. I really thought this would be the year that the approach would change. It doesn't appear it's going to change. And if you can't pull a last couple of one of these few guys out to try to just find something here you can grab to, it's going to be really hard to see the success coming forward on this offensive line this year merely by improved coaching. It certainly is possible. I'd love to see it. But based on what we've seen in the past in recent years with that same kind of reliance, it has not brought that type of outcome. Emily says, Vikings are fixing their O-line. Why can't we? I don't know. I would have loved to have done what they've done. Ryan Kelly and Will Freeze, both on those two deals. I certainly think Freeze was super expensive, and it would have made me a little bit catch my breath. But I think, like I've said this whole offseason, that John's in a unique position to where he can overpay for whatever lineman, and everybody is going to really applaud it. And if you brought in Ryan Kelly and Freeze at the same time, like the Vikings have done here, look at the chemistry and continuity you're going to have working between the two of them. I was watching some tape last night of Will Freeze. A little wishful thinking on my part, as it turns out in retrospect, but I was really kind of digging some of the chemistry that you were seeing between Kelly and Freeze and how those guys were working together. I remember coming away from the tape going, man, I really wish we would have been able to go out there and get Kelly still. He's still a really good player. Yeah, he's getting it done there at the center position. And, the Vikings get a little bit of a 2-for-1 on that, of not only the good players, but they get a bit of that uptick of chemistry right off the jump too, in addition to it. Fourth year seems to be the sticking point. Not the money, actually. Bobo is my religion. Difference between the Hawks and the Vikes is that the Hawks are making moves to make the team better, while the Hawks are talking about making moves. Yeah, you ain't wrong. Mr. K, my guess is John signs Josh Myers and Brandon Scherf. John Bunting for the bleachers. Exactly. I think wasn't there a bunt home run at some point, Mr. Kane? I feel like we had that at some point in baseball with a bunt home run. That's a great analogy, though. We're essentially trying to bunt home run it. Not just a single, not just to try to get it out in the gap. No, we're going to clear the fences with this one. But that is probably the route that they will end up going, and that would have been matching up. I mean, Mr. Kane, that would match up so succinctly with what they've done in recent years. Ryan Myers says, all this truly doesn't change my mind that the first round choice will be a defender. I agree with you there. I think it's just the way it'll roll, and I'm okay with that. Value is the way in the draft. It is the guiding light. It is a draft that drafts can get so complicated and so hard to determine stuff. And how do we measure this position versus that position? And you just can come down to simply value, especially the first round pick, and really live in that world. It will take you home. It will show you the way. Stoyan, hey Brando, what's up with the O-line free agents? Seems like we're going to pass on everything again and count on the rookies we draft, which probably won't be ready first year to play. Darnold will get wrecked. Yeah, Darnold needs to pull out some extra insurance this year. I would say that with Lloyd's of London or something. No, I know I'm under contract, but if I happen to get a torn ACL, can you guys just guarantee future contracts? That's what I'd be doing about Sam. But it hasn't worked in the past. As you say, Stoyan, this is the reticence that I have to believe that this is going to now suddenly work when it has not worked as the exact, not just as a partial, but as the exact same approach that you have taken in many, many, many recent off seasons. Brian Myers, B, the possible ownership mandates are an important point. I think this is the part that I've kind of just in the last, I saw Dan mentioning something about, Dan Biens mentioning something about it on Twitter from sources he was hearing with this. I've heard a little bit on it on a couple of other areas as far as maybe being hinted at. And so it's something that's starting, I think, Brian, to now come a little bit more to the forefront on this of, okay, is this, when something doesn't make sense, there's something extra at play usually. These guys aren't just merely, doing this. John at this point would have to have understood on this, to ignore this level just puts so much heat back on him, especially if it goes wrong, and especially with the likelihood it does go wrong when it has gone wrong in the past, taking the same approach. And so I think that's where I'm thinking maybe there's a little bit more of an outside factor coming in on this one, Brian. Not sure on it. I'm kind of floating it out there as much as anything. Skyler says this interior offensive line set is depressing. Time to pour up an old fashioned and throw in some pizza rolls. I felt the same way on it. I saw the news today on the freeze, and then you're going, the Dahlman contract yesterday was a brutal blow. It's like, dude, you could have blown that contract out of the water and it still would have been a home run signing. Maybe he just didn't want to come here. I mean, maybe it was that, but I have a feeling that whatever team was competing for Dahlman that was willing to give him a little bit more was probably only willing to give a couple million more, just barely go over the top with it. Have the details of Sam Darnold's contract come out yet? Check the over the cap. I hadn't seen any true update as of yet. They have not updated over the cap yet, so not for sure. Mr. Kane, how many people have hit that like button? Thank you for reminding me that. Please do hit that like button if you could for me. Really appreciate yesterday as well. We got a lot of new subscribers yesterday. We were able to crest the 19,000 subscriber mark, which felt good. Felt real good. Thank you to all those that jumped aboard the Hawks Nest yesterday. Alien Wizard, what's poppin', man? Blue Hawk 206, in 20 years she'll sell the team. Maybe. We just certainly don't know exactly the time frame. Dara, how much are they willing to pay for the free agent lineman, Brando? Well, it seems like, Dara, they were willing to match the Will Freeze deal all the way up to the 4th year that was added to the contract, and that's where they went no-go. But given the past history on this and John's own sentiments on this, they are a team that does not want to overpay in free agency for offensive linemen, and certainly don't want to pay multiple years if you're going to overpay, i.e. you're much more in the role of wanting to throw out a 1-year deal. So I think as other people said a little bit above on this, I think you do address your center and your guard positions at some point in this free agent period. The likelihood, though, is it's going to be probably like a 1-year deal. And the issue with this in the past with 1-year deals, of course, is when you're unwilling to sign 3 and 4-year deals, that's less money that then you have to squish those contracts into the books. You eat up the cap space really quickly taking this approach. And that's what they probably will do with a Myers. And if it's not a 1-year deal, a 2-year deal that serves basically the same way, where they get out after 1 year, but then the cost is all up on the front side of it really heavily. So I would imagine that if we're predicting the direction they would go, that would be the way that this would take to Adara on that. A Zeitler at 1.8, a Josh Myers at 1.5. Post Evanescence. Oh, sorry, I missed it. I got a couple donations here. 1 sec. Let me get those donations. Brendan M. Thank you for becoming a member of the channel, Brendan. Welcome aboard the Hawks Nest. I appreciate you for doing that. PGZ, man. Thank you again for all those gifted memberships. Mr. Kane, my brother from another mother. Thank you for the $10 donation. He says, for the therapy fees. Thank you, Brother Kane. These moves seem eerily familiar. Just saying. I'm trying, bro. Trying to keep the faith. Everyone hit that like button. Hawks Nest is soup for the 12th man's soul. Ooh, I like that. I might steal that line, Mr. Kane. Soup for the 12th man's soul. I got to put that in my tagline. I like that. I like that a lot. And I'm in the same place you are. I'm definitely fighting some urges to be a little bit impatient and to get a little bit frustrated, but trying to keep the faith, say the plan, and some of it too is also the bottom line of it, whether it's the exact plan for taking the step back that I was going to foresee or not, it is a step back. And if they're doing it, whether it's the exact details of what I wanted to or just in general details, at least they're doing it then. And as much as I say that, that will then be a bit painful for this year. Well, then 26 is going to be really set up for you're good to go. Your books are clean. You've got your draft picks. You can go make your run. If you want to go jump for the quarterback at the top of the draft, you have the development of a possible Darnold and whoever you may select this year in this year's draft to assess through that time period. To have a couple different guys to look at too in addition to it. So I think the stage would really be set at that point. But I know that that would not make the 12s happy because it would mean a year of pain and suffering in 25. And it's been 10 years. That's part of where I've said people push back on the 12s for getting a little bit annoyed at some of this timeline. It's like, look, I mean, these people have been waiting 10 years. Yeah, a couple playoff wins in 10 years. You've been kind of, you may not have been the worst of the worst teams in the NFL, but as far as measuring success goes, Jaguars have more success than you since 2017 in the playoffs. And nobody looks at the Jaguars and they're like, there's a team that kicks ass and takes names year after year. So it is a bit of a pull on both ways on that. You want to keep the faith on it. In a lot of ways, you feel great about what you're seeing within it. But then there is also that this feels very familiar. And the heart of what I think a lot of us who are frustrated with John have at the core of that heart is that he's taken the same approach to his failures. He doesn't take different pathways. He does the same stuff and the same stuff down to the nth degree. And you go, well, wait a second. It's year after year that's not working in this way, or maybe not. It's not fully failing, but not working. Not working. And then you're going to go and hit that button once more again in the same fashion. Then why would you expect it to give you the different results? And I do think that that's fair from people who have a little bit of a wonderment on that part of it, Mr. Kane. But thank you. I will do what I can today on the therapy sessions, but this is going to be a tough sell to the 12s, I think, today. Garth Knight, I appreciate the $5 donation. Great to see you in the house too as well. What disappoints me is the fact that while we have the draft to shore up, I think there is a difference between 22 and 23 and veteran experience. Yeah, you certainly have the picks to where you can really, to your point, double, triple down on this offensive line. And not only are you tripling down in the way of just getting bodies, but you're getting really highly talented players too, in addition to that. And sometimes you can find linemen that can hit the ground running. Some linemen, like we saw with Christian Haynes last year, it's going to take a year in the weight room. It's going to take a year to learn how to be a pro. And it's always kind of hard to determine whether or not you're going to have that guy who's in that mode or not in that mode. So I think that's where I get a little bit worried in the same way you do there, Garth, where I'm like, yeah, it's a path that could be successful. But when you have a guy, the Darnold, that doesn't necessarily deal with pressure as well as Geno Smith did, and you're going to put him behind that, and along with the hopes that there's actually somewhat of a try and attempt here to really try to push in 25 and do something. Well, it's hard to see that kind of work out. You see so many ways of how that would go down kind of potentially in flames. But the good news that you would be able to add on to it is, to your point there, Garth, is at least you would be able to get those high-end offensive linemen added into this. And when you did that last time, a couple of years ago, when the line was in somewhat of a similar shape, in fact, a worse shape, where I think you had all 5 positions you had to figure out, you were able to come out of that draft with Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas. Those guys were able to be immediate starters for you and play at least at that league average level that I've been saying, look, that's where we got to get to, just kind of almost bare minimum with it. If we get there, that's going to have a substantial impact. So maybe you can do that again with this draft, having so many of these picks. I don't think it's out of line with it. It's just it is a tough and a narrow path to get through to get an offensive line up to snuff in a fast fashion. MJ Seahawk, thank you for the $5 donation. MJ, maybe we need to spend our time trashing San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Arizona instead of waiting for a signing. We could always do that as well. Nothing wrong with doing that. I think the Los Angeles Rams are being pretty smart with their approach, so I can't really tear down as much what they're doing. AZ's not spending a lot of money, and they're not making any big swings, and they're certainly being in probably a patient approach that fan base is probably going do something a little bit more than this. Let's get going. So that's true there. And San Francisco, we know they're tightening their belt strap with the players they're releasing out, and they brought Bosa back in there. That's not a great signing for them on that side of it. But yeah, that's a good way to go too, man. If we stay waiting for a signing, we might be waiting here all day. Mark Sanchez, thank you for the $20 donation, Mark. So far this offseason for me is a C minus. Re-signing the defensive guys is a plus, but refusing to sign guards because of the price is unacceptable. I don't like paying high prices for food, but it is what it is. It's the market. Well said on your part all the way around. I would grade the offseason so far in a similar place, if not even really a D+, where you are taking the path in general terms of going back, like I said, but you also added Darnold, which would have not been I would not have wanted you to make this big deal. That was the whole point of me saying with Gino and DK that the timing is not right to do this type of stuff. It's not even about the individual players and their talent on this one. It's really more of just your team's not necessarily in that right kind of shape to get this going. So don't put these big contracts out there. And then while the Donald one at 3 years, $100 billion is not a backbreaker, it's still a substantial deal. And especially a substantial deal if it's for a team with a limited bit of upside, if you're not able to really substantially get this offensive line upgraded. But the hopes are really seemingly going to lie and lean on the draft at this point. Unless something changes up. There's obviously some things we're early in. We got to keep in mind too, we're 2 days into free agency. There hasn't even been the official start until tomorrow. There'll be more guys released off the books after tomorrow. They'll be on the open market. You are going to get maybe more of an opening to trades. Maybe Seattle kind of pivots and tries to make a big swing on a kind of a different move, kind of coming from a whole different standpoint of this. You never know. So we definitely still got to remain patient with it. The appearances are the appearances, but sometimes looks can be deceiving too on this one, and you never know when there might be a little bit of a change, which might make us feel a little bit more like, oh, okay, there was a plan here in place. But I'm not pushing back against anybody with a grade like that so far. If you want to grade it so far, and I think that's a fair kind of outlook to this, because on the surface of it, looks like you're going to set up Sam Darnold behind either old offensive linemen or super young offensive linemen, and neither of which outside of your tackles might be particularly good, which then kind of sets Darnold up for failure if it does play down that way a bit, even if you've got the improved coaching, even if you've got the improved offensive line coaching, even if you've got the improved scheme. Those things will help, but they're not going to save you if you can't get this thing where it's been in prior years, where you've had that line where those guys just haven't been functional. They've allowed the offense to get sunk. So I think it is fair on that. I do. And like you said, the food, you want to eat the fast food, you can get cheap prices. You want the good food that satiates, nutritious, got to spend a little bit more money. Price the price there, Mark. And I think your grade is very fair so far. I think I would match up to it as well with it. And you definitely feeling it. I was looking online today, I could just sense, man, the 12s are hot. 12s are hot. I appreciate you, though. That is very kind. All of your donations yesterday, 20 today, and you dropped many over here recently, man. Thank you, Mark. I really thank you for that. Mark with another $20 donation. Let's go. Hell yeah. Mark, thanks for the 20, man. He says, hey, B, I have a request. Could you do 3 mocks today? First, don't trade. Let the draft unfold. Second, trade at spots only if it makes sense. Third, be super aggressive and have some fun with the last mock. Thoughts? Yeah, I'll try to slip those in. That's great ideas. We want to roll these mocks out now and kind of go different directions within, certainly in reaction to what's going on in free agency. I don't know if we're going to go super late today, Mark, because I do have a 6 o'clock show with the roundtable people on this one as well. So I will try if I can on that to bust that out. But if we don't, Mark, I promise, because I will be live tomorrow too with the official start of free agency. So if I don't get it done today, we'll do it for sure tomorrow. In the next 2 days, we'll knock that out. But I think that's a great idea. So first, don't trade. Second, trade a couple spots. I was thinking of doing that. I hated how the draft was rolling out yesterday when I was doing the mocks. So moving off 18 to like 26, 27, and let's get a couple picks in there and let's have a little fun with that. On the other side, I like that. And aggressive. Let's trade up for, let's move up. Let's see if maybe I get a couple first round picks or something, right? Let's go with some prime stock. Some prime grade A stock. I like it, Mark. Thank you for the double dip, $20 donation. And we'll try to work that in today if we can on the stream. But if, like I said, if not, definitely tomorrow we'll be hitting up. I'll kick it off, as they say with it. Very kind of you, though. A hell of a way to start us off today. And again, you guys were unbelievable yesterday. We had so many donations. I really thank you. Sports Talk with Jose Rodriguez. So when does John's seat get hot? Well, that's going to be, I think, a very much a question that's going to rise up if this team goes through another year of what we've had to deal with. And especially as people walk into it knowing that we're probably walking into what potentially could be a catastrophe situation, as it's been a catastrophe situation many seasons recently. The one thing that I think comes into this that is sort of the new element that is kind of like a radar blip, Jose, bing, popped up on my screen here, is the potential of how Jody maybe, or if not Jody, just the committee, Jody or the committee or whatever the committee's doing is in Jody's interest, essentially. And that ownership, that sale of the team thing hovers over the top of this team a little bit like an Acme weight. And you go, is this affecting business at all? And I haven't thought up until this point that it has been. Up until this offseason, I've thought that they've been willing to spend. They've been top 10 in actually spending money, all that good stuff. But starting to wonder now a little bit if there's a bit of an ownership part of this, Jose. So I would say, yes, if ownership's not, and John's doing this true blue his own way, and you go through another season of this happening, I think the seat not only gets hot, it gets hot really quick and really, really hot. But at the same point in time, if ownership is putting in their sense of control into the situation in this way and holding him back from doing his job in full, then they're not going to as much hold him to account as if you look at other situations where you have ownerships and general managers in a similar place. That tends to be the way it goes. Like the ownership gives you, they give you sort of a pass because they know some of these decisions you're taking the heat for have come from them and what they're pushing. And that's probably when you get the sense of John, I get a bit of that sense from him because we've all wondered, why isn't he more sometimes like getting a sense of urgency feeling from him as opposed to just kind of easygoing, wavy gravy kind of stuff going on where it's just like, yeah, we're fine. Yes, everything's going. It's like, boy, I mean, it's 2 playoff wins here and it's 10 years. I think another general manager starts to get a little bit nervous under the collar on that. But that's the part that's hard to say there, Jose, because how much is that ownership part coming into this or not? V-Ray, thank you for the $5 donation. V-Ray says, take a sip of the Zima, relax, and remember, it's only March 11th. Go Hawks. Go Hawks, bro. And indeed, it is only March 11th. There's a whole off season here. Official free agency starts tomorrow. We have a bevy of draft picks. Nobody has more picks in the top 100 than your Seattle Seahawks. You still have a ton of cap space here. That isn't just about, well, we got all those picks to go make the draft picks. Those draft picks are also bountiful in what they can be utilized to trade. And I have said that some of the ways that you might be able to, take on good players is through the trade and through those picks you have, and not even necessarily happen to be super prime picks at that. As we're seeing at times here with these players, especially teams that are trying to offload players who have a little bit of a glut of salary on the books, they're not going to necessarily get the best price back in return, yet you're still getting a very solid player. And so got to relax, got to see how it all really rolls and plays out and goes. It's still very too early to tell on this one on that. But I think we can understand too, V-Ray, when it comes to people definitely having been down this road many times before, that they're starting to have a little PTSD kicking in too, which, I kind of get, and I'd be lying if I didn't say I'm fighting my own self a little bit going, yeah. Is that a firework or was that a gunshot? But well said. Well said, man. Jake Waldman, thank you for the $5 donation, Jake. I really appreciate you. And thank you for all this. You guys are just very kind. It says, thank you all. Thank you for all of your positivity these last few days. So many fans are negative. I myself am optimistic about Darnold. Let's sign Kupp. Sign me up for Cooper Kupp. I think that that's a great kind of bridge receiver to bring in here where there is still, I think, something left in the tank in his ability. He fits to this offense and the kind of routes you're going to ask him to run and what you're going to ask him to do. You can probably play just about every wide receiver position if you need him to. He blocks really well. And I don't think he's going to be super expensive on a monster multi-year deal, Jake. I think it'll be a pretty feasible one-year deal. And I'm optimistic about Darnold too. I think that John's looked at this as much as I think some people take it as John's gone ride or die with Darnold. And I think that rather than it really being that, it's more of John saw a market opportunity to pluck a quarterback that he valued at a very low rate. And if that quarterback pays off, there's many ways that works in the team's favor. And if Darnold falls on his face, the team has a very easy way then to get out of that contract. But the upside of that and Darnold actually taking off and realizing his potential fully here and it working great, it has so much upside to that from the team's perspective, especially on the contract he will be on. And that's the part to me where it's, even as I'm not a big Darnold guy, I can see still the intelligence within that thinking. Even if you can't get the offensive line built up in free agency to help him out on the front end of that. Because at the end of the day, it is a little bit flyer. It's an expensive flyer, but it is a flyer. And it is a bit of that, you're taking that stock risk there where it's, if it does pay off, it pays off hugely. And if you lose, you don't lose out on much. It's not that big of a cost then on the other side. But Kupp, yeah, sign me up with him. I think that he would find some effectiveness here in this offense. You go out, you're going to probably get a couple of young receivers in this draft. Having a vet like Cooper Kupp there to guide those young pups along and show them the ropes, very valuable, I would say. But thank you, Jake. I'm doing my best on that side. I definitely can fall prey to the negative trappings as well as anyone. But I feel pretty good overall on this stuff. I'm just kind of riding out on this now. I'm doing this 5 years. I do kind of start to get a point with this too. I'm like, I just stay kind of in the cut and let this thing roll as it's going to roll and see where it goes. But thank you, Jake. Well said on your part. John Naylor, thanks for the $5 donation. Baby John Schneider as general manager is a Trent Dilfer, game manager and not able to elevate a franchise. Trent won a Super Bowl, but he was a game manager. It's very true. It is very true about Trent Dilfer in that. That was who he was. And he could be a functional guy, and we've been a functional team. I think that those comparisons are very true on that. John's in this time has had these years to show that he could prove and that he can build that elite team. And you've not been able to build the elite or contending team. That's the word I keep coming back to, because I think that there's a real profound difference between a team that's trying to nudge its way into the playoffs and a team that's actually a true contender. The Cardinals next year are going to try to nudge their way into the playoffs. That's their goal. That's their grand guiding light. And with us, it feels like that's almost a bit been kind of our guiding light the past 10 years, rather than really truly being a contender. They've told us that they think they were a contender, but the teams have not actually been that. And that track record is what it is as far as John goes. And few general managers in this league get that amount of time in a given place without that lack of success. Granted, he's a Super Bowl winning general manager. He brought us 2 back-to-back. So the success on the other side is also stuff that you don't tend to have with a general manager. And when he got you on the front end of that, it's part of what makes it hard there. But we'll see what he does here. See how he rolls as we go forward. It very well be we could find out, John, that's the case in it with him. It very well could be. John Naylor says with another $5 donation. I appreciate the double dip donation. He says, I'm not jumping John Schneider ship yet, but scanning the horizon for icebergs. You're not going below deck for some tea, right, John? For a spot of tea. You're staying up in the cat, what do they call that? The catbird nest, the cat nest, the something nest. And I'm in the same place. I'm not jumping off John Schneider either on this. I'm going to watch and see how this all goes through and plays out. I've told you guys all that if I see him taking the same approach throughout a whole offseason toward the offensive line, that there's going to be definitely some difficulty on my part to laud him for that and say that he's taking a good, right, proper, smart approach at that point. But this is a long offseason, and there's a long way to get there, and nothing has been fitted and set in stone yet where it stands. And so I would like to think that they've got some creative solutions that they can pivot from one to the other, that you set up a plan of attack, A, B, C, D, E, F. Maybe they're on C, but it doesn't mean that it has to be a bad plan C. It's just alternative option if we can go this direction if the plan B don't work. So I think that's a fair way of looking at it, John. I have the same sort of feeling with it. I'm not out on John. Just definitely you're a little frustrated trying to see the plan. Show me the plan. What's the plan here? What are we doing here? What is exactly what we're trying to get done right now? And that part we are going to learn about here. We're getting a better feel for it more and more, but this thing's really going to come into full light here, John. That iceberg's going to come down the line. It's going to be from that distant point on the horizon where it's a speck, and it's coming right up in front of us here pretty soon, one way or the other, and figure out what's going on this one exactly. But well said, man. Well said. We'll get over to you guys here in the chat, but I mean, Mark's dropping $40 in donations. We gotta do a quick draft simulator. simulators always make you feel way better anyway, don't they? I mean, we're not getting any linemen, right? So let's roll with this and have a little bit of fun. I'll bounce over to you guys in the chat. You're gonna drop that kind of donation. I'd be a dick if I didn't. I'd be a dick if I didn't acquiesce. Okay. So we've got 3 scenarios. We're going to do the straightforward one. I'm going to see if I can't keep my stuff together today because my 2 mock drafts were god awful yesterday. We're not good. This is the redemption tour, okay? The TheSeahawksNest redemption tour begins now. Now. Okay. Kenneth Grant. I ain't even thinking about it. This is my guy. We're doing the straightforward draft. Give me Haloti Nada. Give me Haloti. Ooh. Hey, we're going to sign Cooper Kupp, and then we're going to get the next Cooper Kupp. Jack Besh, come on board. Value pick all day long. Oh, wait. I totally messed this draft up. Damn it. I forget that they don't have the... I'm an idiot. I'm not a smart man, but I know what a mock draft is. I probably should make some trades, huh? Watch, Grant's not going to be there now. You son of a bitch. Oh, you scoundrels. Yikes. I want Kenneth Grant back. Give me Kenneth Grant back. I always mess up the draft with a tasty picks. Ooh, there we go. Okay, let's get our trades out the gate here. Broncos. Mm-hmm. FFE updating this board slow. So we got from them 52. We give them DK Metcalf. Again, we got the Raiders. And then we got I thought it was a later pick, but I don't know if they don't even have this updated. Man, holy hell, let's update the thing, dude. I'm not going to go too deep on this, so I don't want to try to dip into it there. All right, draft a player. Who do we got here at the board? No Grant, unfortunately. No Grant, unfortunately. But if this man drops down to 18, I'm jumping on him with 2 feet, and that's going to be Ted McMillan. Get our wide receiver. Come back here in the second round. We've got inside linebacker. Don't need that. Not a big guy on like Ionamore necessarily. Man, these linemen in this mock now, they go quick. So I like RSA more than I like Wyatt Million. And this is kind of a pick at this point if I take a wide receiver that I got to come back and take a offensive lineman. So I like Ratledge a lot. In fact, I might be coming back and getting Ratledge here as I got to double dip this because of how we've dealt with this situation. But RSA is the value pick to me. I come back to this draft again and again here. I have a first round grade on him, and I just think that that's a tackle guard conversion type. Gives you both. I think that's the best pick to go out there. I know it's not going to be the most popular pick. Come back. Let's get this taken care of with probably, again, going back and looking at the line. See, the thing is, if I don't go interior line here and get a tried and true guy now, I'm stuck. Because we get the drop off down into here. So this becomes almost a reach pick, but this is what happens when you don't take care of the damn thing in free agency. Third round, we've got to Jared Ivey. Go with a power edge. Mason Taylor, tight end. Jordan Phillips. We are going to probably be able to get we got kind of a run here already on the nose tackles. I really do like a lot Kyle Kennard, but I think you're driven a bit to go get Phillips. Kennard would be a tough edge to pass up on, though, here. I'll tell you that. Ivy, too. Kind of hate doing it at that point, but you got to go. Ooh, we got Savion Williams with Ted McMillan. Our apartment. I'm pulled on this. So many picks, and you're pulled in so many ways with it. Okay, well, we need both power edge and we need nose tackle. I need to get Byron Murphy out of that spot. All right, come back here. We've gone so far with a couple linemen. We got our wide receiver. We got defensive lineman. I can go with Mason Taylor. I can go with Mason Taylor. That's a hell of a drop for him there all day long. All day long on that one. Oh, baby. All right, back in the fourth. Quarterbacks. This draft is one where it lets you have Tyler Shock down super late in this one, which isn't really realistic. Dafe there, the fourth is kind of interesting. Oof. Jackson Haas, we could go get a block, get our fullback guy too there a little bit. Couple ways you're pulled. The tight ends are still pretty good though. I don't need to really go hard on that. My quarterback's pull here, but Oladejo is the guy that. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna go. Let's go Will Howard. Let's not prolong this. Let's get our quarterback taken care of. All right, back here. Some good names here. It's not necessarily just easy pickings. All right. So probably should have gone with Shock if he's not going to be there at this round. So I grabbed Howard's Shock there in the fourth, I think is the way it would have to go. I know some people like Monheim. I'm a little bit bigger on Majors. Oh, let's go get our center in the fifth. All right, back here again. Man, Higgins just had a horrible combine. Horrible combine. Catan Crawford in 6. Damn, Brody, where are the corners at? Yeesh. That's where I messed up in this draft a little bit, the corner situation. But I think they could go out there and get cheap corners out there to fit in this scheme just fine. All right, so we've gone with tackle, guard, got 2 wide receivers. We've hit the offense really hard in this draft. Malachi Moore is kind of the guy that would have sort of the biggest grade for me, I think, of these guys on the board right now. But Jackson Slater's the guy that I haven't looked at that I kind of wonder out here if John would just hammer one more time, make sure that he gets something out of this draft extra as far as offensive line goes, you know? Like, you're going to end up cutting somebody. You're trying to deepen it out that much. There's a little bit of a pull for me to do that here. Not a lot of other players here jump out a lot. Kind of feels like I'm gonna go just let's make a run at him there. Let's make the run. Mondon, go for a linebacker. I've done that a bunch, I know, but boom. So we got the first one done here. We'll check with you guys in the chat on this reaction wise, but first one is done. Well, here, let me do it this way. It's easier just to save the image. It's better than yesterday's. Yesterday's was horrible. I can't undersell how bad I was with my mocks yesterday. So we get McMillan in the first round. He drops down, snatch him up. Arasay, I have a first round grade. I'm going to pick him a lot in these mocks just because they're going to keep having that deep. It's hard to pass on that. Tate Ratledge coming back. Great combine. Jordan Phillips, Mason Taylor. You got your nose tackle. You got your tight end. Better as a receiver, much better as a receiver than A.J. Barner. Davion Williams, you got your receiving core set with two big guys on the outside there. As far as wide receivers go, he gives you a little bit more to me of a guy who could fit to more of that Z type than the X pure, get the ball in his hands in space, let him work kind of guy. Will Howard, Jake Majors, Keaton Crawford, safety of the future out there to maybe replace Bryant down the line if you don't want to spend money on him. And Slater and Mondon at inside linebacker. Those would be my picks on this one. Those would be my one. We'll do a couple of those other ones still, Mark, but that'll be our first one kicking it off today. Those will be our first one today. Thank you again for that dono. Janeth Kumar, thank you for the $5 donation. Appreciate you for that, Janeth. A few of us are making fun of the Texans for picking up Tomlinson. I wish 12s didn't really crap all over players leaving. No, I don't kind of get that either. It's there is a little bit of sometimes that needs to be done, and I don't know if that's part of the process of making your peace with letting go a guy or what. Or some of it's just an extension of the frustration of the offensive line. And look, Tomlinson came in and he gave you the money's worth last year. Was he a particularly good player? No, he wasn't. He was way below average, but he was better, probably, well, not better than what maybe a guy from Damian Lewis, but he was what you're going to spend $3 million. That's the best play that you could hope to get for spending $3 million on a guy that is at the end of the career like he is. And that's, I definitely don't have to crap on him. It's not his fault. He's had a long, really good career. He doesn't have to, kind of apologize for anything because players don't play for this long in this sport, and you've got to be good to do so. You've got to be a good player to pull that off. So he's not it's not really a reflection of him, but you're right. You see some of that, Janet, too, and I try to hold off on that as well as I can when they go, because unless it's been something where it's been a player's been, there's some toxicity or something between player and team, fans or whatnot, but that wasn't what was happening here. It's just that extension. I think a fan's frustrated with the given issue at hand being the lack of addressing this line, other offseason not addressing it, and people are just kind of in their feelings, I think, a little bit on this to a degree on that. Thank you, though, Janet. Appreciate the $20 donation from Sanchez. Thank you, Sanchez, for the $20 donation drop. I don't get paying for a quarterback, but not a line from an ownership perspective. But I'm down for watching Darnold break the single-season sack record in an atrocious line. I've done it the past 10 years. Why stop now? Yes, I'm the same way with this in that I don't understand paying for the quarterback, but not the line, Sanchez. This is your biggest asset. This is the most money on any person on this team you're giving to. You're giving it to this guy. And this guy requires protection. For him to do his job right, for him to stay upright, requires protection. And then you look at it and you go, we're not going to give him that. And then we're going to still hope for him to have success. And part of what has been so awesome about Geno Smith this past couple of years is not merely that he's been awesome with the high-level throws and cool plays. It's that he's overcome this horrific situation that every other quarterback would have collapsed underneath upon. And he didn't collapse. He was able to keep himself functional and steady and sometimes even really excel in that environment. But it's not one that you want to count on. You don't want to be asking quarterbacks to do that. It's not a recipe for success. And it is a place we've been down many times over. And Russ dealt with it too. And we saw the outcome of it with Russ. And it's why people are so frustrated. If you find yourself kind of looking at your fellow 12th man going, why are they so frustrated today? Why are they losing it today on day 2? Because this is not just merely, it's just, well, it's 2 days into this and they're impatient. It's that this thing's showing the same form as it's shown in every other years prior, where so many years prior it's failed in the same way. I don't know why ownership would sign off on not willing to go to that 4th year. 1 second on this. Whew. Sorry about that, Mark. Allergies are killing me the last couple days. The ownership thing I'm not sure on, and I'm trying to figure out if this a little bit is what going in the background. It's the thing I wonder about. And the only way with the ownership perspective on it, I think from their standpoint of it, Sanchez, would be not that they don't want the offensive lineman then in front of them, but it would be if it was the impeding factor that they were not willing to allow John to sign off on the 4th year of the contract. And if you look through the contracts that we currently have on the books, there's not a terribly lot of 4th year contracts that have been handed out, not only this past year, but over the past couple of years. It tends to be 3-year deals. And then that's where they kind of do stay with it. And then 3-year deals where they want the out after 2 years. They're almost as seemingly a built-in functionality of their approach of how they're spending money right now on the surface of it, which would appear to be that you're wanting to give the next prospective owner for whenever that owner takes over. And it doesn't have to necessarily be 26, 27, 28. It could just be from Jody's mind that she wants the stage set that whenever she does decide to flick that switch, that then she wants the books clean for the corresponding future for the prospective owner who's going to take over, because in her mind or in the committee's mind, that would theoretically increase the overall value of the team. That would make it a more attractive place for an ownership to buy. I don't know this for sure. I'm not saying I think this is exactly what is happening, but I wonder within that if that's not a part of this process that's kind of playing out too. But thank you, Sanchez. I appreciate the $20 donation. I share your frustration with it. And Darnold is not going to do as good as Geno did behind a similar offensive line. You will see Darnold get broken. You will see Darnold get battered. You will see Darnold seeing ghost after week 3. He is a guy that is very similar to Geno Smith in what he can give you on the football field as far as overall level of production. But Geno's skill set in dealing with the blitz and getting away from pressure and getting out of bad plays and being smart from the neck up, control at the line of scrimmage, a lot of these items are not necessarily as much in Darnold's bag. And so it's going to be, he's more susceptible in this situation if you create the same conditions that you did for Geno Smith. Thank you, though, Sanchez. Appreciate the $20 donation. That is a big, kind donation. I thank you for it, man. And hopefully we'll see a light at the end of this tunnel today at some point or another. The HHG, thank you for the $2 donation. TJ, AJ, RJ, / fourth, be a good safety. TJ. / fourth. Is that a Key and Peele name? TJJRJ / fourth. I just got that. I'm a little slow today, HHG. Oh, goodness. Janet Kumar, thank you for a $2 donation. It says, I'd argue Ted McMillan is wide receiver 1 or 2 in the draft. He's my wide receiver 1, and I think Matthew Golden has really solidified himself as a first round wide receiver and as the number 2 receiver to go off the board ahead of Emeka Abuka. But Ted McMillan is far and away to me the number 1 wide receiver. And watching his tape, I just really do get the same vibes and feelings of what I got off of Mike Evans, who I scouted coming out of Texas A&M playing with Manziel. I didn't just watch. You watched a lot of tape, and with McMillan, it's the same way, where it's a 13-year-old brother snatching the ball away from his 5-year-old brother, younger brother, just picking it away from him. And that you go, look, there's times in college when you watch these guys in contested catch situations, and you go, that's not going to translate as much to the NFL. Guys are going to be bigger and longer and stronger and be able to dislodge that ball. But he's so tall. He's got such good leaping ability. He can extend so well, and his hands are so soft that he's going to pull that off at the next level, like we have seen Mike Evans be able to do so as well. And so if you get him there at that 18, I don't think there's any way in hell he's sitting there where we pick at that point. But if he is, you jump. You jump. Be More Seahawks, thank you for the $2 donation. I'm just excited for the Sam Darnold memes. I was going through, look at some pictures last night of Darnold, just trying to get some cut ups so that I could use for future thumbnails and whatnot. And he's one of those players who has no hiding his face of what internally he's thinking, So every shot with him that you see with him, he's dropping back to pass, and it's like this. Or he's running in the open field, or guy's about to get to him from behind. I mean, he's a tough guy. I'm not questioning the guy's toughness, but to your point on the memes, his face is just, it's out of control. Some of these shots where he's just like, like a bomb blew up next to him or something. Oh, Lordy. Janet Kumar, thank you for the $5 donation. Brandon, can you please do a quick breakdown of the San Francisco free agency situation? I missed all of it except some meltdown by Niner fans. Appreciate all you do. Yeah, my pleasure. Well, it first kind of starts here. We've got to begin, kind of with where they're at and what is the obvious thing they've done here in their approach, which this is the over the cap side of it, Janet. And at the bottom is where you're going to see the dead money applied in here. And this is the part where we can say just with absolute certainty that what the owner has done this offseason is they've come back to the general manager and they've come back to the head coach and they said, you boys need to tighten that belt strap. You need to get the money on this books a lot more cleaner than it currently stands. So get to slicing, get to dicing. And right now, the San Francisco 49ers, as we stand only currently right now, like they could still do more, have $71.719 million, $77.7 million of dead money on their books for this upcoming season. They are essentially going to pull this thing all the way down as much as they can. Is some of this getting set up so that they can go out there and give Brock Purdy his contract? I would say probably so. They're going to probably try to find a way to get that done. That just seems to be the flow of it. But when you look at their free agent moves before we get to the actual free agency and what they're doing, I think that that's the part that's got to be put in perspective first with the Niners, because that's driving them. And so when they don't make moves in free agency, it's the understanding that this has, like us a little bit maybe, where ownership has come in and said, we're not playing this game with you guys anymore. We're going to mandate some things with you. As far as free agency goes with the 49ers, holy crap, this site's a... Oh, this ain't the site. Holy mackerel. That's not what I was looking to do. There we go. There we go. Sorry, folks. 1 second here. Yeah. So we've got the San Francisco 49ers here not making a lot of moves. They did sign a backup tight end, Luke Farrell, to a 3-year, $20.25 million deal. Traded Deebo Samuel, signed Patrick Taylor Jr., a running back, to a 1-year deal. That's really it. He may not even make the roster. Javon Hargrave released. Malik Collins released. Leonard Floyd released. They extended Ben Barch 1 year. Kyle Juszczyk released. They've signed Richie Grant. Signed linebacker Luke Gifford. All these are low-end deals, so these are guys that are just filling out the roster kind of moves. Kyle Juszczyk was a guy for years that the Niner fan base had been wanting to see moved on. Leonard Floyd was a guy they added in free agency that didn't give much of an impact off the edge, and they're thinking that they're getting a upgrade in Bosa over what they had in Floyd. That makes a lot of sense from their standpoint of it. Both in Malik Collins and Hargrave, it's similar to Leonard Floyd, is that these were two moves that they thought with guys who could provide some real impact. And neither of those guys was able to provide any kind of real impact. They were real net negative moves for them as far as the cost given up for both of the two players, though it was less significant with Malik Collins than it was with Javon Hargrave. But these are moves that are letting go of not good players. Even in Deebo Samuel's case, I would say, Janeth, that there's not like these guys have a lot left in them and what they're going to do in the pro level, really, in my opinion. I know Hargrave went to the Vikings, but he just didn't do much. He doesn't play the run. He's just a pass rusher from the inside. That's all he really gives you, and not even all that good at that. I think the Niners aren't actually doing anything stupid here. I don't think that I don't think that we should be in a place where we just take for granted at this point that because they're eating $77 million of dead money, that they're not going to be a team that's going to be pushing for the division title next year, up around that mark of things. They've got to get some things right. Certainly, they're like us. They're going to need to draft really well. But if they do those things, then they can be that type of team. Certainly, they still have all that rest of that talent that's there with the Kittle and the McCaffrey. Juwan Jennings has come on for them. Ricky Pearsall started to get stronger for them at the end of the year. They hit a home run last year with the Dominic Pooney pick at right guard. Here it sounds like Trent Williams is coming back for another season at left tackle. So they're going to be okay, I think, in as far as all that's set up. They're not going to be the juggernaut they've been, but they're certainly still a very dangerous team. And these moves are not going to be crippling. There's nobody that they've lost that's really was somebody that was really helping them out a ton last year to go win football games. Makes sense to me on what they're doing. Garth Knight, thank you for the $2 donation. Brando, any general managers value O-line less than John Schneider? No. I don't think that it's hyperbolic to say it. I don't think it's an overstatement. My opinion on this is that, especially given the fact that he's got the 14, 15 years of track record here, and especially the last 10 years where he has changed his pace from what it was when he initially was here and the initial approach he did take to the offensive line. I think it succinctly has told us that he is one that measures it as least as anybody in the NFL. I used to think it was because simply just you were trying to offset the value of the Russell Wilson contract. Wilson's costing you top of the market. You still want to get skill position players. Pete wants to pay his running backs. Pete wants his defense. There's got to be somewhere you're pulling from, right? On a roster balance standpoint, finite amount of cap, you're going to have to yank from somebody. And I thought that John just kind of took the one road he could kind of find within that is that, well, Pete, it'll be acceptable for Pete to have us a less offensive line, and Russ can run around, and so I'll go cheap there. So there seemed to be a bit inherently that was kind of directly connected back to a bit of Russ and his escapability and what Pete wanted and the way you want to build the rest of the roster, specifically really going for those skill position players rather than the offensive line and where you spent your money. But he's continued this after Russ has long left, and continued this after Russ has long left to the same results. And so that does inherently bring me back around to there less being an excuse that's feasible here, Garth, and it to being more about his inherent mentality as it concerns looking at the offensive line. There's time for this to still change. There's time where he might find a way to reverse this round even before we finish off the show today. And we hear about this lineman, that lineman, and a lot of people would feel a lot differently about this approach. It may not, completely satisfy folks, but at least they'd be like, okay, we're going to be functional. But this has been his track record up until this point, until he makes those signings, until he makes those moves. You have one major trade from John Schneider for a quality offensive lineman in 14 years. He's not signed the most major free agent contract that John Schneider has signed in free agency for an offensive lineman. Double checking that I'm right on this. I still do believe that this is the case. The most major contract that he signed for an outside free agent offensive lineman was, I believe, a 4-year, $15 million deal for Robert Gallery in 2011. I think that's his last one. I know for sure that the biggest contract for an offensive lineman the Seahawks have given on the books remains Walter Jones's contract that he signed back in, I think, 2005. To me, these are kind of indicators of that's an affirmative to your question, Garth. On top of that, we already know last year you spent as much or as least as anybody else in the NFL on your offensive line. Few, if almost any, second contracts given out to offensive linemen, even those that were drafted very high. All these would lead to that being kind of in that affirmative, Garth. I need somebody to try to push back with some other real good evidence to the other alternative of it if that's not the case. If it's that old joke, it smells like it, it looks like it, you touch it, feel it, isn't probably it. Even more Seahawks. Thanks for the $2 donation. If we draft McMillan, I would cream everywhere. I probably would too, man. Or maybe you meant scream. Cream and scream. Probably both. McMillan's awesome. If we got McMillan, all day long, every day. That's a run to the podium player. That's get me on a zip line to the podium. Give me the Batman zip line gun and let me just zip on in there up to Goodell to make sure we get this pick in before somebody tries to take it away from us. Every day, all day on that one, feed me. He's awesome. HHG with another $2 donation, another Key and Peele name. The Catholic okay, the Catholic Mango. The Catholic Mango would be a good linebacker in the 4th B. With a hard name like the Catholic, you were built linebacker tough right from the jump with that. The Catholic Mango. That's great. Let's go, HHG. Thanks for the donation, man. Mark Sanchez, thanks for the $5 donation. I appreciate you for that. B, do you think that John not going after guards because he doesn't agree with the market is detrimental to the team, being more of a personnel decision? Yeah, it just feels like it feels like the old man who's you're taking him out to eat or whatever, and he's looking at the menu prices and he's like, I don't want to eat, this is too much, you can't charge me this much for a meal, I will not pay this. Grandpa, this is the cost now. It's inflation's been a bitch and it's stuff's rolling up. It's the way that I don't care. I will never, if my mom saw me buy a meal at this price, she would kick my ass. I understand, but it's modern age now. Grandma's just, this is the cost. We're hungry, right? We gotta eat. You gotta eat, right, Grandpa? I gotta eat, but I'm not eating at this price. Well, I understand, Grandpa. I do, but this is the new normal now. New normal. Got to adjust with the times. Change with the flow. I don't want to change with the flow. I liked it the way it was. And that's, I'm joking, of course, a bit here, but it's in general terms a bit of the vibe I get on this one. I walked in this offseason going, there's no way he can, again, go down this same line. He's got to have finally hit the realization. You've hit rock bottom with that offensive line. There's no more farther fall to be had. It's gotten as bad as it can get. And we should be only up from here. But John is, I think, if he's got a belief in anything when it comes to, if we come away with this fitting to form as far as his philosophy on team building in the modern age, he is as hardlined and as strong on really not feeling like it's smart to spend much money on these linemen or to really restrict your spending, restrict the years you put on them, to be very careful above any other position. And that's where it seems he's kind of wired on this one, Mark, to your point with it. But it is the feeling that I get as well, that he just seems to, I'm not going to move. We're going to have to get this done through the draft or not done at all. And that's the way I'm going to be about it. And that's, it might work. Teams have made it work through the draft before. So it's a feasible process. It can be a frustrating one because you'd like to use both. You'd like to use every advantage you have at play in order to make your team better. But it's understandable about roster construction and the finite resources got to go into the right places and all that. And it's his way. Maybe he'll make it work or find a way to make it work. We shall see on that one. Maybe more Seahawks. Thank you for 13 long months as a Hawks Nest member. I thank you for that. Over a year, my man. B, I've heard no reports on Reek getting traded or them being close or somewhat close. I think he stays on the 4th with the cap. We have thoughts? Yes, indeed. I was definitely never really trying to proverbially, I know I put it in a little bit of predicting the offseason moves that they were going to, but it was more of a just generally thought they might. I could see it going both ways. And I certainly think that there's probably an argument to be made that in a draft like this, where it is so deep for the cornerback position that you're not going to max out any kind of value returns back on a guy like Reek if you had him out there on the open market. So probably does come back at this point for the final year of his deal, and they let that roll and see where it goes and see if he comes forward. And I'm okay with that. You can't deny the ball skills. You can't deny the coverage skills. You'd like to see some more consistency. You'd like to see him a little bit more locked in. Guys mature, guys develop. Guys get better with time in this way as they become, further in their adulthood. Maybe it will be the case with him. I hope so. Dogzilla Monster, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, could we trade Cross for a cheap punter? Need one. Dixon is the way, man. It's Dixon for the next 10 years, Dogzilla. We're on Aussie time right now. It's the way we're rolling with this one. That's how we're rolling. Thank you for the donations, though. I appreciate all of you for that. Appreciate you. Ryan White says, you don't seem to understand. John's playing 5D chess. He's going to trade the whole team for draft picks. Then not draft anyone. He'll have so much cap space. Ornacity says, Ted looks so nice now that we don't have any wide receivers, laughing out loud. Can't deny that. It looks a lot better, especially in light of where the receiver room is at. That is 100% the case. Harry Morris, remember when nobody drafted Russ in the first round and we were like, who the F is this? I do. Yeah. Nobody thought he was going to become what he was going to become. Maybe John could do that once again, Harry. Jake Waldman says, not sure if you mentioned it already, but Corbin Smith said we offered Freeze $50 million. I didn't see the Corbin report. I had heard from Dan Vienne seems to have some connections to some degree in what he's hearing in the background of this. And what he was reporting was that he was hearing that the Hawks were willing to match essentially the deal, but they weren't willing to go the 4th year of the contract. And so hard to say either way, I guess, on that, which one it was, one or the other. But either way, they weren't willing to give what the Vikings were willing to give. And the Vikings walked into this offseason with the same kind of cap space the Seahawks had. And they're signing guys right and left. And not bad players at that. I mean, they got both Freeze and Kelly. But interesting. Very, very interesting. If Danny, what a boring ass free agency day too. Amen, brother. Amen. Hawks eye view over under Darnold gets sacked 120 times. I'll tell you this, I ain't taking the under on 50. I'm definitely not taking the under on 50. And he can hold the ball for a little bit. That's the other thing with Darnold is that he's got a little tendency he likes to tippy tap on that ball in the pocket for a little bit of time. Copper Wise, the Saints signed Becton. I was seeing rumors that the Saints were narrowing in on Becton. I have not seen a confirmation of it. I'm checking the Twitter right now. So I don't see anything quite yet, but the most recent heat was on the back of Becton going to the Saints. A.A. Joss, the Ayuk signing is what really sunk the Niners. Yeah, it really is A.A. Joss. And it's one where there was so much, I think, momentum behind the team and people on the outside looking into that situation going, look, you've already paid Debo here. You have Ayuk coming up. You go get that draft capital back for Ayuk. That's really the pivot you need to make at this point where you stand team-wise. You can't pay everybody. And you start to have to come to some place where you have to make some hard decisions. And the Niners have really held out from really making any real true hard decisions absent the DeForest Buckner trade they made a few years ago when they got the first round pick back. And maybe that was one where they got bit on that a little bit. And so they're like, man, that didn't work in our favor with Armstead and DeForest instead of DeForest. And we got hurt for it. Let's not do that again. But that was the pivot to make at that time because you didn't have the cap space to really float the $30 million, especially when you already had the Brock Purdy contract coming up on deck a year out. Nicholas says 398 watching, only 140 likes. Yes, please, if you guys could for me, hit that like button. I know it's a small thing, but a big thing that does help out the channel. If you could for me on that, gets me showing up on the algorithm. Vinny says 75% of the people currently watching had no clue of fries before last week. That might be true. Haley says, B, Singer reported that Fries wanted to come to Seattle, but John Schneider wasn't allowed to offer more than 3 years worth of advance cash. Jody holding back the team? If so, honestly, why be a Hawks fan? It's a thing that we can't confirm on this with, Haley, with any sort of certainty. So it's something I have heard as well, is that this is the deal that's going on in the background of things. And it is very disheartening. And it would be, if it's true, it's debilitating. If it's true, Jody needs to sell the team ASAP. That's really my thinking on this because, at the heart of what you're talking about in there and what I would believe to be the case on this is that your team is not getting to the Super Bowl when you have an owner that's got their eyes on eventually selling. They don't want to sell quite right yet. Soon. Not yet. Soon. Not yet. Hold on. Keep the books right. Not yet. Okay, hold on. Not yet. Give a little more time. Okay, not yet. Not yet. Like, more. No. Keep the books clean. Keep the books clean. Not yet. That to me, you're putting your front office and team in an impossible spot to try to win when no other team in the NFL is dealing with that type of impinging. Spring is definitely in the air, folks. Goodness gracious. You need your ownership to do the right things all the way down the line on this, Haley. I need my ownership to be committed. Commitment means money. If I'm telling my general manager that he can only sign out 3-year deals in free agency because I don't want any advance money on the books because new ownership's not going to like that. It's not going to make our sale look as good. That doesn't work. That's not a pathway for that team to find ultimately any kind of success. And it makes a lot more sense, quite frankly, if this has been driving force and a driving factor of this team for the last 5-6 years since Paul Allen has died, being that she's doing a little bit of what I've wondered on this situation, which is that Jody's sitting in the pocket, understanding that she has to sell the team, that she's mandated to sell the team by the Paul G. Allen Trust, but that she doesn't have a timeline of when she has to sell it. But what she also wants to do, it sounds like, is be a part of the new ownership group. So she needs to have enough money that she can retain in socket to be part of that part of the ownership group. And she also knows that every single year she holds on to that team, the value of the team continues to increase by the year by probably even a couple of $100 million on top of the couple $100 million profit that reportedly these teams earn every year through the profits that they're pulling off of all their, advertisement deals and whatnot and all that. And is that a driving force to this process, Haley? Is it? I think it's a fair question to ask, being that we know with 100% certainty that the trust does order the executor of the trust to be Jody Allen to sell the team. So I'm concerned about this. It's kind of a new thing that's kind of popped up, so I'm still trying to process it too, but I think your instincts on this one are correct in regards to that. 1 second here. DJ says Bert holding Jody to do Paul Allen things. Me says Paul's got to be rolling over in his grave right now if that's true, Haley. Yeah, that's the other part of this. Great point, me, which is that you doing this is, if you're Jody, if you're doing this crap, this is spitting in the face of John Allen or Paul Allen. This is not how Paul Allen would have ever have wrote it. This was not Paul Allen's direction ever when he was running this team. This is you doing your own thing with this. And quite frankly, the whole point of him putting you in charge of this, if this is true, you're not doing what you're supposed to as the executor, which is to carry out his wishes and to carry out what he did. He didn't build this whole thing up. He didn't have this fan base where it was. He didn't take this team to contending status so that you could sit on the team for a couple of extra years to build out some profit margins so you can pull a couple of extra ducats into your pocket on the bottom line of this at the end of the day on the deal. And that all then comes at the price of the fandom looking for this team to improve and get better. And that's, as I say, it doesn't even have, this can impact things even just a little bit on this, and it has a major impact down on everything else on this team. And Paul would not do it this way, me. You're right. He would not do it this way. Nick says, I simply can't get mad at John this offseason. The free agent offensive linemen aren't great. Hell, they aren't even good. Dahlman had 1 full season. Fries had 5 games of production. $18 million for a 5-game sample size. Yeah, that's fair enough there. I would agree with you on Freeze. I was definitely never much with Freeze. I think Dahlman's a little bit of a different case because he's also was a very young player coming along in those first couple of years, Nick. He's 25 years old. So it's getting the 1 year of performance from him is not as much of that kind of the outlierish situation to that one. Also a pure zone fit for what you want to run schematically wise with that too on the other side. Rain says if ownership is actually only allowing 2 to 3 year deals, that completely ruins being a fan of this team. Yeah, and I don't know this for sure on this, folks. I don't want to try to set too many off on a line of that. I know this is the way it is for sure. It's just, it is a thing I was hearing in the background on it and some things that are being reported on this. So it's not with 100% certainty on it, but I would feel the same way if it was true, Rain. I would be a bit in the same kind of pocket on it. This is such a hard league to win. You have to get so many things so right and so good. And if you're holding yourself back with any kind of parameters, I've said this about coaching, where with Coach Carroll at the end, it was this way. Your schematics and your coaching are holding you back no matter what else good you're doing, and you can't have things holding you back. You can get things wrong, you can make mistakes, but you can't have things that on a yearly basis are holding you back as a football team from finding success. It's too hard to win in this sport. You might be able to make yourself good, but you're not going to be able to make yourself great. And I don't know that this is the way it is, but it would be a little bit of my worry here with it. Nick says, we have money and we have over a half a dozen guys who need extensions. Why blow the load on mediocre at best options? It's as if multiple Pro Bowl caliber players were or are available. I think that the issue, if I may come down on this line of it, Nick, is this is the same approach you've taken every year. I understand, and it's certainly true thoughts to say that this offensive line class, as far as free agent, wasn't super strong. There was a lot with it that you were going to have to overpay for what you wanted to go get. I think that and what you're saying on that is completely true. But what we have to also understand is the lay of the land and the price of doing business. And you don't want to spend that money to get those kind of players in that way. But at the same point in time, there is also the other side of this where if you choose not to do it, we know how that outcome plays out as well. We know how that offensive line looks as well, don't we, Nick? We know what happens when you try to just go pay for what the value of the player you want, like a Laken Tomlinson or a Gabe Jackson or an Evan Brown or an Austin Blythe. So that's where, to me, this isn't just a one-year situation to look at within this. This is more of the same behavior of this team over a last 10-year period by and large. And it's one thing I understand to look at and go, these guys, you can't pay them this amount of money, but other teams are willing to pay it. And the price becomes the price at that point. And this cap is always going up, and it went up a ton of money right now. And I think something that does happen with this, Nick, at times is we look at these contracts and we go, wow, that guy's up at that amount of money, but we're not kind of factoring in the fact that this cap is going up so tremendously every given year, and that's going to push these prices on up. And if anything, I'd quite frankly say to you, Nick, too, offensive linemen have been devalued in this league. They've not been paid up to what they should have been paid, and that those teams that recognized this market inequity and took advantage of it and recognize it's worthwhile to pay these guys this money, even as you quote unquote are overpaying, come away with teams that are better teams for it, in my opinion. I've said there's not been a team yet that's invested in their offensive line and comes out the end of the year and go, man, we shouldn't have invested in our offensive line. That's where this whole year went wrong. That's where it all went sideways. So if this was a 1 year off, Nick, if this was just this is a 1 year in a sea of years of different ways that you'd gone about it, I'd be with you on it. I'd be, okay, yeah, I can see a lot of that sense in that. And I'm not the biggest Will Fries guy. I'm not crying about that part for sure. But the fact that this has been the culmination of many a year, I think that does change a little bit of the outlook on this a little bit. Somebody call Bezos. Haley says, John Schneider has shown a willingness to adapt at times, but our advance cash has been low since Jody took over. It really does seem like there's some smoke to the fire here. So disappointed, man. Rightfully disappointed if there is fire to the smoke. 100%. 100% rightfully put. Half Daddy says not getting Ryan Kelly for $9 million a year is dumb. 4-time Pro Bowler and stud center. I feel the same way. I was saying earlier on the stream, I was watching the tape last night with him and Freeze because thinking that we were going to be getting Freeze this morning, and he was really standing out to me on the tape last year. Quinn Willman, would ownership have signed off on him overpaying the crud out of someone as long as it's 3 years? Well, Quinn, I think this is another part where I don't think ownership is well suited to be coming in and telling John which players he should or should not be signing. Ownership has no football acumen. Ownership doesn't know what is a good signing and what is a bad signing. So if they're telling him not to sign somebody, it's merely based on the sticker cost than it is on what they know about the player, where that player is going. And again, and this is any other ownership group does this in any other place, Quinn. If Al Davis was doing this with the Raiders, if Jerry Jones is doing this with the Cowboys, we would rake them over the coals for it. So I think that if this is I don't know this is what's at play. I want to preface this again, but if it is what's at play, then I think it's very fair to be disappointed with it, to be frustrated with it, and to not say that this is not a good way to go about your job as an owner. This is bad. This is an example of bad ownership if this is what is happening. Dogzilla, thank you for the $10 donation, Dogzilla. If we don't fix the offensive line, I might not even renew my YouTube TV. I know how this ends, and I don't want to watch it. It'll be 7-9 wins against mostly bad teams with our offense looking a mess. We have been down and stories played out many times before, and I can't blame anybody that is kind of a bit at their wits' end in watching it happen. some don't want to hear it on the positive Seahawks fan side of it. And you do sense at times from some Seahawks fans on this that they don't want to ever hear anything negative. And I can get the standpoint of like negativity can get old and it can get tiresome and worry. And I get all that. And that's why I try to stay away from it as much as humanly possible. But you can't stay away from negativity when it comes at the cost of truth. There's a sense of staying positive and keeping optimistic, but it's not to be blindly applied. And I think that people that have this feeling of it, you're looking at trying to look at this intelligently and how you see the team going. And it is not merely you're headed down this road once in the last 5 years or twice in the last 5 years or 3 times in the last 5 years. It is that by and large over a 10-year period, every individual season, this has been your approach. And there's been many seasons that we could look at with the offensive line that they have stood at the forefront of the reasoning as to what sunk the team as a whole. You could not reach your high side. You could not get to your top end because your offensive line was so bad. Item A number one, not the only item all the time, but item A number one a lot of the time on a lot of those 10-year period where you have had very, very, very limited, if any, success. So I understand where you're coming from, Jeffrey. Hopefully this is not the way this is going to play out. We're talking about some proverbials here and some possibilities here, but we're not talking about actualities here. And there's still more of this offseason. There's still more of these moves that are there to be made here. And maybe they find some creative fashions in a different direction that we're not considering right now that brings ultimately a team that equivalent or better than what we were kind of looking at with a couple of these guys for them to sign in free agency. It looks a little dark right now, but it is just 2 days into free agency. We haven't got to the official start yet. And let's let that all kind of flow and play out fully and see where it goes there. Because I think there's still reason to have hope here that John can find a creative approach. There's a little bit of dark in my look. I think there's still definitely that opening here for there to be a pathway here for them. It's been gotten a little narrower, but the pathway does exist. Dogzilla Monster, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, is it time to bring out the GIMP? Bring out the GIMP. GIMP sleeping. Bet you go wake him up then, huh? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Can't say the next line. Maybe it is time for the GIMP. It would have been fitting for me to come out in a GIMP outfit here at the start of the stream. Chris says, I think the free agent miss was James Daniels. No surprise. Just doesn't overpay. A trade is still possible, but hopefully they draft to fit a scheme for interior offensive linemen. We have the damn picks. We do indeed at that. It's the good little silver lining on this. No matter what happens to silver, and no matter what happens in free agency, you got a bevy of picks for this upcoming draft. Troy Peterson says, no effing way we've been dogging John because Jody won't let him spend. Laughed my ass off. Possible. Nasir, welcome to California Beat. Thank you, Nasir. I'm loving it down here, man. The weather is so nice. So nice. Haley B, if John Schneider gets fired and goes elsewhere, I could see him giving 4 to 5 year deals with how the cap has been increasing. It's cheaper in the long run, especially with the outs at 2 to 3 to 4 years. Yeah, that's the part of the advantages that you want to be picking up on is if everything's short term, if you got a lot of 1 year deals you're throwing out, you're eating your cap space up very quickly in the short term. But to your point on this, what a lot of teams are doing and doing smartly so is understanding that this cap is just every year going up all this much. And that this allows you to push a little bit more money down the line to where the deal doesn't look as bad. Because like I say, it's a bit of where I think us from a fan standpoint, and even myself included on this, can sometimes be a little slow to catch up to where the numbers are at. And it's not necessarily always that these players are now just getting paid so much significantly more at these positions that used to get paid pennies. It's as much of that inflationary cost of the salary cap increasing so strongly that it's opened that up. And it's everyone gets to benefit from that, including even these interior offensive linemen, and even not ones that are stars per se. and that it is odd to see. It's a little bit strange in many respects, but it's the new normal, and it's not going to change anytime soon. That's the most important part. It's not reversing course on this one. A.A. Joss, the good news is that Sam Howell will be a perfect fit to abandon sacks if Darnold needs a breather. Zach, wait, you talking about Jones, the swing tackle? He's just played. Sorry, you were responding to somebody else up there. Competitive story picks just came out. Hell yeah, we got a 4th and 2 5th rounders. Let's go. Let's go. A 4 and 2 5s. Tasty. Tasty. Sean Edwards B, thanks for your informative Seahawks coverage and for making us laugh despite the lack of O-line progress. I hope I can do that for you guys today, Sean. I mean, I don't want to be in my feelings. I don't want to be negative with you guys, and I want to try to give you guys a light here where no matter where we're at, let's find some humor. Let's have some laughs. Let's enjoy ourselves. You know, it's a sport at the end of the day, and it's something we all take seriously for sure, but I hope I can supply that. I don't want to be just a morose and over here just kind of bumming you guys out on that side. I don't feel that way, number one. So I don't. And it's just there's a lot to always with this team to talk over and kind of discuss and figure out. But at the end of the day, we'll get to the right path of this. We'll get on the right tracks. But I appreciate you, man. Thank you. But Haley, I could see John doing the same thing if he went to a different spot, especially in light of some of the news that we're hearing. Then she kind of break out on this. Nick says, we just got the best free agent quarterback and gave him $100 million. Where's the idea we don't want to spend money coming from? Making smart financial decisions isn't the same as being cheap. For sure on this, Nick. Again, on this, I'm kind of a little surprised, Nick, because it's a little bit in the tone on your post. There's a little bit of a lack of building in with this, that this is not the first time we've been down this road. So I'm completely with you, having the faith in the front office and their approach with this and to not overpay. And I'm kind of understanding completely, get a little bit to that to a degree, but I also think it's not crazy to come back this year of this being the yearly approach once again, over and over again. You've paid big money to quarterbacks before and not addressed the offensive line. So that's been your approach before. And we know how this can result. You gave Geno a lot of money and then you didn't protect Geno. So it's not people making a leap of logic to say one will then begat the other. One has begat the other for the last 2 starting quarterbacks that you've had for your Seattle Seahawks. The lack of investment in the offensive line has been there on a yearly basis, Nick. It's a little bit in the tone of like you're acting like this is just a one thing in the moment of the first 2 days of free agency. This is something that's 10 years. And I don't think it's fair to kind of try to dress it up as another thing of it's just this 1 year thing with the lineman in just this class. And it's just the way they're always this way. This is the same path that they've run down before. Are the next moves not coming on this, Nick, going to be a bevy of 1 year deals? Is that not the next structure of John's offseason? Sign a couple in-house free agents. You got your one quasi swing there with Darnold, and now it's going to be a bunch of 1 year deals like Zeitler and Dalton Risner, and how has that approach worked then? And I know we have a lot of picks, but now we're asking young pups to come in here and not only start but be good from the jump. And that's where it comes down to. It could work. I hope it'll work. I want to see it work. But if we're talking about taking these kind of risks and what has a better chance of working versus not having a chance of working, what a pathway that you've gone for 10 years and gone down that same approach hasn't worked. I don't know why it suddenly works now. It could. The broken clock, right? Twice a day. But it's also not the question on this and spending money, Nick. It's the specific thing we're going to is the 4th year deal. That's the side we're kind of right now, I think, as much hammering on as anything else is. Is our general manager prevented in being able to give these kind of deals out? And I'm not saying that he is. We know but we're hearing some reports that maybe he is. And so kind of turning over that as well within this. Or says, yep, I'm done playing. I decided that I'd be a tradesman instead. Jets crushed my passion for football. Hawks Eye View says Donald saw ghosts in New York. In Seattle, he'll see Sasquatches. There we go. Haley says Darnold didn't get 100 million though. It's like 55 million and 50 million void that will be revisited after 2 years. Probably doesn't see the third year of the deal on that unless stuff's working out really well. Shadow says, didn't we extend DK by 3 years? Yeah, but that's what it says. 3-year extension, 3-year contracts is where they're kind of living. And you're extending with off the final year of his rookie deal that didn't have any extra money on the books. Mr. Grubb, Corbin just tweeted the Seahawks have been awarded 3 compensatory picks. 1 4th-round pick, 2 5s. That's nice. That does help. Our draft's going to be loaded to the hilt with picks, baby. Maybe give us a better chance, too, with this 4-5-5 to where maybe you can even package some of these guys up on that back end to get up there into that third round again. D-Man, some of you just want them to draft O-lineman for the sake of drafting O-lineman. If they aren't going to be any better than what they already have, what is the point? There wouldn't be at that point for sure. No, you wouldn't definitely want to draft worse. I think more, D-Man, the people where I wanted to be on this more was you solidify it in free agency so that you're not then having to draft for need into the draft with offensive linemen. Because as it does stand right now, you're going to have to be pulled to probably pick early at this point, which can oftentimes then lead to your reach into the draft for picks when you're picking for need, as we know. Orchie says, I saw it once and I never said it again until now. Why would you leave the team to Jody? That was a dumb move in itself. I don't know. Maybe he didn't have anybody else that he more trusted to do it, and she is family. Not sure on that. It's a good question. Haley, is there any possible chance of selling the team to a collective managed by the fans, like the Packers? Probably a very small chance. I think Allen would have had to have dictated that into his will, and he didn't. So I would guess that very, very insignificant chances of that occurring. It'd be cool, Haley, if they did. I'd buy my piece. We thought we got the 5th instead of the 6th. Good compensatory picks, man. Props to John on that one. We're being a little hard on John today in certain respects, but you got to give him some props. Came out on the compensatory pick angle off last year. Smartly so. It's good to see. Zach says, Haley, I did the math. 1 million fans have to pay $4,500. Could we get that? Well, you just need a couple whales in there too, Zach. Get a couple whales in there and you're all right. So, and Brandon, do you know what the Panthers offered us for DK? Nope. I have not heard. Warchie says, B, it's not just about Freeze. I was looking at it like, why not get Kelly and Freeze? And then, lo and behold, what did the Vikings do? Got Kelly and Freeze. Yeah. Well played on the Vikings' part, man. And got them at pretty good. They paid a hefty mark for Freeze. Definitely had paid him a gargantuan amount of money, but the Kelly deal was pretty realistic. Haley, I'd be willing to invest in a team like the Packers. It's a forever increasing investment. Indeed. The guy says Schneider never signed anybody for more than 3 years, so nothing changed this year. There we go. Dogzilla says, I admire Pumpkin for how she doesn't get moved off her spot. No, man, she's locked in with me. She knows what time it is when we go live. Howard, this is how the Blazers are run since Jody owns the team. Great point, Howard. We have a basketball team to kind of pay attention to on the other side and what Jody's done with that. And we have a very similar situation going on there with the Blazers, where the team is not contending. The team is not particularly good. The team doesn't seem to be interested in trying to really push or go out there and spend money. We thought that the Blazers were going to be sold by now. They haven't been sold yet. So she's doing a lot of the same thing of kind of holding off on the sale thing. Space, no signings, man. No signings. 3 comp picks, juicy. TJ Howard Schultz does not deserve another shot at owning a Seattle franchise. No. Kings has got a 6 for Taylor. Traded a 6 for one of the Jag players, Gibson. Traded a 4th for EJ. Traded a 5th for Leo. Acquired 2nd and 3rd for Gino and DK. There we go. Joseph, how did the Seahawks get the 13 picks? Kind of how King Bomber laid it out right there. You've got that Taylor trade. You got the Geno, DK, Metcalf trades, and then you essentially got these 3 comps tossed on in there. We are down a couple of picks on this with the picks that we gave up for Gibson and Roy Robertson Harris. I think, was Roy Robertson Harris a future? We had another pick in there somewhere we gave up. Fourth round comp pick's great, though. I mean, that's 2 fifths are nice. I like being in the 5th way more than the 6th because you do get a drop off at the end of the 5th sometimes. And you do get some guys that'll kind of drift down in the 5th round that can be pretty nice. There's some good players in there. So I love that. Great comp picks, man. Blue Hawk 206, Pumpkins just like John Schneider and adding to the offensive line. Not interested in movement at all. Jordan, thank you for the $5 donation. Sounds like Jody stopped us from getting freeze, which lines up with how she is running Portland, unfortunately. Jordan, you tapped into a great point. Someone else was just putting in the thing. I hadn't even considered this one. I love about you guys in the chat. When I always say you guys have a perspective and something that you've thought about with this that I've not considered. It's every time I go live, there's always something extra on it that's usually a real major point. And yeah, we have her not just owning one franchise, we have her owning 2 different franchises. Are these 2 franchises being run similarly? Are these 2 franchises having struggles and finding success? Are those struggles coming from the lack of success because of the fact that she's got one eye towards kind of owning the team and one eye turned towards the pending sale for both of the teams? And it's something that today, more than ever, has really now bounced up on my radar in a major way. And it's got me kind of wondering if, we have a little bit of an explanation for things here a bit. I've kind of given Jody a lot of the benefit of the doubt because on the bottom line brass tacks, she has by and large been willing to spend. But are there some impediments in place for John? Because this is where we get to bad ownership. A good owner is very, very simple and straightforward in what they bring and what they supply and what they do and what they do not do. It's a very clear line of demarcation. And when you're getting into the spot of telling your guy that he can't put a 4th year on the contract, that's active bad ownership at that point. That's not a sign of something being done right and good. And if it's happening on this, has it happened before? And if it's happened before, on what deals? And does John now have to anticipate in the deals he sets up that she'll come down and knock him off the books if he does set it up in the way that she doesn't want with that? These are not things that help your general manager out if they are the truth. And when you do look at Portland, you are getting some similar vibes coming off the Portland Trailblazers. I'm not following Trailblazers basketball necessarily, but just general things I've heard about them with the ownership there. Kind of hearing some similar stuff here now. So we don't know this for sure, but we are hearing this, folks. It is starting to come out here a little bit on this today, and we'll see if we'll get more word on this into the future on this, but it is unfortunate if it is the truth, and it's going to make it hard for John to pull this off. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation, Garth. Are any of these O-line cats Canadian? And is John Schneider is worried about tariffs? There's no tariff tax on any Canadians, even football players. You get them. It's free trade across the border between those types there, Garth. And I would think that John's not worried about the tariffs. I would hope not. But we are close to the border, so you never know. And maybe he's got his eye on a Canadian. There's a couple of Canadian. He once drafted Luke Wilson. There's always good Canadian football players coming out every couple of years out of the north. Maybe there's somebody that has caught his eye. He's getting a little bit worried about that. I don't think so, though. Thank you, Garth. HAG, thank you for the $2 donations. As I'm calling it, Bezos is buying the Hawks. I would guess that Bezos is eventually going to be the owner of the Seattle Seahawks. That's the guy that will come out at some point or another. My feeling on this is that he would have owned the Seahawks already, and this is complete on my part speculation. So don't take any of this as anything more than a knucklehead just pontificating. And so I think that what happens here is that Jody is mandated by the trust to sell. The trust does not tell Jody when she has to sell the team. It's not sell the team by 2030, sell the team by 2028. It just says that you got to sell the team. And this is why the Trailblazers have also not been sold, because with sports franchises, there's 2 things that seemingly are happening in this modern era that stand out. Number one, everybody's printing money. So every single year, there is a profit margin that is coming into you that I think is fairly substantial. The NFL is much more substantial than basketball, of course, but you can't tell me that they're not pulling a profit off the Trailblazers every single year in that like. And so you have 2 points of profit that are bringing in significant amount of money. Probably, I would guess, more money than probably just about anything else of the assets that are within the Paul G. Allen Trust. That they are one of the few net positive type things out there in the way they are, as much profitability as they do turn. You then have the second aspect of it, as I was speaking about a second ago, which is that every year that you own, especially an NFL franchise, maybe not all franchises like baseball, this would be this way, but in the NFL, every extra year that you own a franchise is like adding an extra $150 to $200 million of total valuation to your franchise for when you eventually do sell. So from Jody's perspective, if she can wait it out 4 years, that's $800 million on the increase, almost $1 billion on the bottom line sale, just on the increases there. And then you have your yearly profitability, which I would estimate is probably somewhere in the territory of about 500 additional million dollars on top of that mark. So about $1.5 billion reason to hold on to the team for a 4 or 5 year period to kind of squeeze that profitability out of it. I think there could be something to that. You know that Bezos wants to buy a team. You know he was hot to trot on the Washington football team, and he got that yanked away from him there. He's not going to let it happen to him again. He'll pay all the money on whatever next team he's going to try to go after. And so Jody's trying to set, I think, this up, but she wants to try to hold the line as far as she can to pull, I think, as much of that money that she can pull through from the process on it. And can't blame her for doing that on that. That's a significant amount of money. You understand from a business perspective, smart money sense standpoint of it, but it can be frustrating from a fan perspective on the other side of it when that's also going to be then impacting the day-to-day business. I think it's the way it's going to go to HHG. Thank you for the dono. Garth, thank you for the $2 donation. He also says, Bezos, ditch Thursday night football and save the Seahawks. Yeah, ditch Thursday night football. Thursday night football is lame. We don't need it. Let's keep it to Sundays and Mondays. Stop trying to take over every day of the week, NFL. And it's bad football beyond that. But Bezos is the guy to me. Bezos or Ballmer, I think, are the two guys who could come up. I don't think Ballmer is much. But Bezos is just, he's chomping at the bit, and now he can kind of go get a hometown team. I think that would prove too much of a draw for him not to jump on that and go for it. I do. Evan Christensen says, that kitty's so cute. Well, thank you, man. She's a good kitty. She's a real good girl. She's very lovey. You're very lovey, aren't you? Yeah, you are. Did I wake you up? I'm sorry. They were talking about you. Got something in your eye? I'll get you. I'll get you. I know. You can go back to sleep. I just want to say what's up. I get you some loves every once in a while. Well, once in a while. Nick says the Bears have a quarterback on a rookie contract and have a general manager who's on the hot seat. They also aren't the model franchise for myself to compare us to. If that's something they're doing, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe so. Maybe so on that, Nick. Half Daddy says, remember what Schneider did with the 11 picks in 2019? DK was solid, but the other 11 draft picks for Seattle were ass. I do think that there's been an improvement, though, there. And there's a lot of places that are certainly, I think, fair to be knocking on John with. But I do think that they made a real turn a couple of years ago in studying this and listening to what John was talking about with these drafts, where a couple of years ago, you pivoted off the need approach. And in 2019, you were right in the heart of that need approach driving your draft, where you were reaching for need to fill positions. And that's what got you into that trouble. So I think they've definitely changed over the past 3 years in their approach, especially at the top of the draft on that half daddy. And I think that that's part of why the results of these past 3 drafts have been so much more improved over what they were the past 5 or 6 or 7 years. Haley says, if I'm being honest, had we not re-signed Ernest Jones, I'd probably be looking for a new team. I love Spoon, loves JSN, love Big Cat, but without a player to care about, it's going to be a rough year this year. We're going to have to get through it, Haley, on this one, I think, to a degree on that, to your point. And there's a part of me that's wondered with that, with a team that's had opposing teams taking over your stadium in recent years, a little bit of lack of
connection to the fan base and how much interest you have in this team right now as we stand. We were bottom third last year in viewership numbers across the sport. You kind of also do look to the ownership and John here a little bit going, do you want to give the fans like a reason to maybe root and cheer? Like give them a reason to have some hope on this too, maybe a little bit. Hand him a dart turn every turn. Frank Pepe says, I feel like you guys are watching too much Joe Rogan with all the conspiracy theories. I'm just only a conspiracy theorist, so I'm guilty as charged there. Haley says, John Schneider used to give our players 4-year extensions. The 3 years verb signings are also very low advanced cash future guarantees, which is a shift since Jody took over. I see it the same way on that, Haiti. I do believe that we were willing to sign those contracts before a little bit more. More of those 4-year deals were given out, and they have definitely gone downwards here in recent years for sure with Jody's ownership here. Brian says, Haley, Half Daddy JS not giving Kansas City a 4th for Thuney is criminal. How are the Bears making better moves than us? Chicago has improved their O-line immensely with Dahlman and Thuney. I think with him, it's on the Thuney one. It was just about the age. Heading into the final year, $15 million deal on the contract. You don't want to sign him, probably do an extension from John's perspective at that age, which I can understand for the cost for a B, which would probably be up around $17, $18 million, multiple years at that point. I can kind of get that one a little bit, but at least for a stopgap for a season, it wouldn't have been the worst thing, Half Daddy. Get him on the 1-year, $15 million deal. Is it expensive? Yeah, but you have the cap space. And then the team doesn't like doing future commitment. Well, guess what? You got no future commitment. And you got the extra 4th round compensatory pick, so giving up a 4th round pick to go get that wouldn't have been the worst thing. I definitely kind of fall in that same alignment, especially understanding Half Daddy that they weren't going to approach free agency with a willingness to spend. So then go find the creative pathway to upgrade the position in an alternative fashion then. Martin Lawrence, thank you for the $10 donation, Martin. I really appreciate you for that, and it's very kind. I'm going to reserve getting really angry about the O-line until the regular season, if nothing has changed. Being angry for 9 months will take too much energy. Agreed, man. I'm not going to be looking to try to get super mad on this either. I'll definitely react to my chat and try to break him through on this, as I think there'll be plenty in the chat that'll be in kind of alignment of it. I can understand completely being patient with it, and let's see how it plays out. Let's see if you can land it in the draft. There is certainly a baseline of recent guys offensive line-wise, but if you go out there and if you pick those guys that are the true talents in the draft, you're willing to give up the prime arsenal, and I'm not just talking about first-round picks, but the second, the third-round variety. I know Christian Haynes didn't work out last year, but there's a lot of guys that have worked out, picked in that area of things. And if you make a couple picks to it, I was mentioning earlier on this, Martin, we did this with the Abraham Lucas and Cross, got the immediate returns with them when they stepped in as rookies and were able to give us good play right out the jump. That maybe you can do something similar here. It certainly is possible. Certainly is possible. But no, we'll keep it balanced here too. No need to be super all angry just into it. I think it's going to be a little bit today that's going to be a little bit, especially as people were kind of hoping and anticipating something different, but not getting something different. I think there's a little bit today that'll be there, but I think overall people will come around to, finding some optimism. And I think some of it could be too built within that, Martin, could be that, okay, even if it's not to where the team's going to be in that contending role, they didn't hit the contending role this year by trying to push chips into the center or go hard or pull from tomorrow to make today go. They did so at the price of setting the fundamentals up right for 2026 and to have all of your money set up and to have your roster in the right spot, and you can retain the young players who have earned those next contracts, get them locked in for their prime, set the stage to go get aggressive if that's what you want to do then, which there maybe the timing is going to be better and more right. You have Darnold here for a year. He's got a chance to develop some chemistry with guys like JSN and the wide receivers you draft. So it's not the funnest of outcomes, but it's an outcome that could result, as I've maintained on this, Martin, ultimately, whether it's 25 or 26, to the best possible team, to the team that can potentially be actually contending then by that point. Love your optimism, man. And we'll just have to see how it plays out. 2 days into free agency, we can't reach any certainties as of yet. It's too early in the process. That's for sure. Jared Makowitz, thank you for subscribing to the channel, Jared. I very, very, very much appreciate it. We just crossed over 19,000 subscribers yesterday. We're on a road now to try to get over 20,000 if we can pull it off. That's going to be the goal. You're helping us get a little bit closer there in that way, Jared. So thank you for doing that. You are the man in that way. And folks, do please hit that like if you get a chance. Sub on up as well. I would appreciate it. Nagasa Jerami Grant 2023, 5-year 160. Damian Lillard 2022. Lillard 2-year 122, 23, 26, 27, 7. Signed. Trailblazer contract. Okay. Well, they've been spending money at least. Chris has agreed to get rid of Thursday Night Football. Yeah, Thursday Night Football. You know. Just keep it on Sundays. Nice thing about that, too, is you get an extra game on Sundays and the early day red zone, late day red zone. It's more action-packed. Brian Myers' old owners were a different group. They were. They were indeed. Brian says Bezos wanted the Vamanders, and when he was denied, he appears to have dropped his desire to own a team. He's not a Seattle guy anymore. Oh, okay. Balmer, step on down. Step on down. King Balmer, Tevin Jenkins rumored to the Bengals, and Mekhi Becton to the Saints. We might be cooked. Howard M says, as a Blazer fan, we did not spend any money in free agency in the offseason for 2 years. Yeesh. Hawks Eye View is Jody Allen getting getting advice from Jerry Jones.
Listen, Jody. Listen, you can't pay these players too much money now, okay? Now, I've already told you about checking out the junk, making sure the junk's sizable. Okay, that's how you can tell a good football player, right? You got that part. They can't spend money. Gotta keep it light. Gotta keep it lean. Gotta be flexible. Way to go, Jody.
Hopkins, 1 year to the $5 million to the Ravens. Okay, it's kind of a Ravens-like signing. Jay Stu says, how the hell are the Saints spending so much money this free agency? They always put the money in the books to where they're going over the top of the books every year, Jay Stu, but they have a lot of cap flexibility by the year. So it's conversion based to bonus. It's moving money around. For some reason, they just like to operate in that alignment of things. But they do always seem to find some way to still go out there and hand out contracts in addition to it. But I don't think it's for the Saints' betterment that they do it. It certainly is not that this is paid off for them taking this approach. But it is their approach. Funny money. With what's left, I'd like to see us pick up Becton or Jenkins at guard and then sign Kupp. Maybe after that, we can add a defensive back, then prepare for the draft without so many holes to fill. Sure would like to do that, Funny Money, which is get to that draft and be able to not have to be reaching for need. Because that's what gets you into need, is you come in a draft with absolute needs that you have to address, and now you're scrambling. Tevin. NS, I forgot to ask you yesterday, but do you believe Sam Darnold will contribute a lot for the Seahawks? I don't mind the signing as much as maybe some of the others do. I wouldn't have minded maybe going more to full bridge 1 season of cheap quarterback contract for a guy, but Sam gives you a lot more upside than whatever else you would have gone with that. So that gives you a little bit of some hope for the 25 season, even though I think that it is kind of a get-through season kind of situation. I think they're kind of taking it's a bit of a flyer on it, Tevin, where there is some hope he's got some upside there. If he can realize it into year 2, 3, you got him on a real cheap contract. If he can't realize it, I think that the team will be just as willing to then move on from him after this season or look at other options. I think this doesn't prevent them from drafting a quarterback in this class, too. I think they would be very willing to take that approach with it as well. So I think the quarterback situation, I would say, Tevin, is really one that's kind of fluid and open-ended right now as far as their approach and what they're going to determine they want to go and do here. Me says, for being an orange cat, she sure doesn't have any of those notorious orange cat tendencies. She's sweet. She plays it up for the camera, Me. She plays it up for the camera. She's a hellion, and she's a wild child off camera. It's all I can do to keep her from climbing the walls. She's attacking her sister one moment. She's crying at the door the next moment. She's eating a bug the next moment. She's all over the place. So I don't know, when cameras go live, she chills out. But once the cameras go off, here we go. The carnival ride re-begins. Jessica Bessica. What's happening on day 2? All I hear so far is crickets. Well, that is all I'm hearing as well with this, Jessica. It would seem that this team has a very strong philosophy when it comes to spending money in free agency, especially wave 1 of free agency. They've been a team in the past that has been very hesitant to dip their toes in these waters. They are going to have a tendency to want to wait to wave 3, and that's where they'll start to spend their money. Yeah, this is probably then going to mean a lot more of 1-year kind of deals more than it's them going for high value guys that are selectively picked out, so to speak. That's been the modus operandi of John in the past in regards to these kind of situations. And I would guess, seeing this kind of fitting to form so far as it is so far, probably going to see that same thing over the next couple of days. I would imagine tomorrow we'll hear a couple of, probably about a good 3 1-year deal signings over the next day or two, would be my guess. Dogzilla says, Jody has absolutely zero concern about money. Infinite wealth is hard to wrap one's brain around. Indeed it is. Indeed it is. I do say I don't think Dogzilla, she's running the team in the same way Paul did, with the same approach Paul did. And I think there's something to that, whether it's about money or not. I think the other part of this is that whether you're a trillionaire or not, there's some aspects of this that are affecting her on this that I think you'd be smart to consider on this. Number one, we've heard that she wants to be a partial owner. So how does she get to be that owner? By getting enough money to spend for her piece of the ownership, hundreds of millions of dollars. What's one pathway that might be opened up to her to get that hundreds of million dollars to buy that piece of that team in that future? Well, if you're able to stack this cash up now on the profitability, if you're able to get a piece of some of the trust on the backside after you liquidate it, and if the liquidation is maximized by you, the selling of the Blazers and the Seahawks for the most that you can get back, now you're getting that bigger chunk, and now you're able to go out there and buy that chunk of that team as a partial point if that's what she's wanting to do, which is what we've heard, and it's been widely reported. All this is definitely speculation. But one thing is absolutely true, is she's not running this with the same aggressiveness or the same sense of urgency that Paul Allen ran this team. Zach says, my orange cats are also pretty chill and sweet too. People always say it's weird. They're wild cats at times. When they get their blood up, look out. They're a lot of fun though. A lot of fun. Jessica says, orange cats are great. They just get a little feisty sometimes. They do. They get wound up. They got a little bit of that feral in them still. Zach, I have a cat I essentially made a dog. He likes truck rides, goes fishing with me on the boat. Oh, I bet he loves that. Cool Breeze says, orange girls occur a lot less and are more chill than the average orange boy. That's the part that probably helps here, is she's a girl cat. The boys are a little bit more rambunctious. Mr. Kane, y'all need to read Brandon's book if you're into conspiracy theories like I am. Hell yeah, Mr. Kane. I am going to be doing once we get through the draft this year, Mr. Kane, I'm going to do a reading of my book over on my Twitch channel and probably just kind of post it as just something on a separate channel thing once I get through all the reading on it. But appreciate you reading, man. Book's doing pretty well out there on Amazon. It's not tearing up, but we get a cut. We get some sales. We got me in the house. We got I'm a couple donos back here. Sorry, one sec here. Me, I got you on the dono. One sec. Garth, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you for that. He says, so do we need to simp for John Schneider and just forgive anything due to rumor that Jody is holding him back? By the way, would we not know of this? I think the Seahawks organization has proven to be pretty good about being quiet about things in the background. They don't tend to air out their business, publicly speaking. So about whether or not that we would have heard about this if this was the truth, I'm not so sure that would have been the case. I think just as likely they would have kept this under wraps and that Jody would have insisted upon it, because if it does get out, it reflects a bad upon Jody. And I would reckon to guess that she probably doesn't want that. So she would probably want to insist upon it not getting out for that reason. Now, because we have this conjecture about Jody, do we let John off the hook for his decision-making and forgive anything on that? No, absolutely not. You're responsible for your job. You're responsible for the team you built. You're responsible for staying in an environment where you were you were held back in that way, if you are held back in that way, and we don't even know if it's the truth. So it's also one where it's like, until we know the truth of that, number one, we would never want to come to that determination. But even if it was the truth, it still doesn't let John off because you signed up for this. You've not been forced into this role or this situation. And certainly then, the fans have not been told the ultimate truth at that point if you've been operating that way and that you've had your arm tied behind your back, but you can't tell people that you've had your arm tied behind your back, but it has been, but this has caused your team to not be as good. And so now the fans are also being kind of lied to on the general direction and purpose the team is looking to go. And that's also not reflective well upon him if that is the truth. But again, we don't know it's the truth. We would need much more confirmation of this than we've just kind of heard from a guy on it, that this is the kind of case. But is there some smoke to this particular fire and what we're seeing in some of the ways that this team's operating a little bit? Maybe. Yeah, I think a little bit, at least a little bit. And we are hearing is the center point of this freeze deal is that the ownership came in and said no on the 4th year. And I can't remember ever hearing this kind of rumor ever coming out on these kind of contractual negotiations between player and team. But I don't think we would necessarily know of it, Garth. They do a very good job of keeping things under wraps over there at Renton. Me coming in with a $150 donation. Me dropped a hundo last night, I think, didn't you? Me, man, my goodness. So much kind support from you here to the channel. And I really, 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 really do appreciate you for that. You're very, very kind on that side. Me says, no one interacts with their audience quite like you, Brandon. It's why you're the best. Just donating a little for the therapy you're providing. Go Hawks. Well, it's my pleasure to provide it. And you guys help me through it. If I help you guys through any of this as far as understanding and wrapping your head around and making some peace and being all right with it when we all come around, you guys do the same for me on the other side of it, me. And I thank you for the donation. I love these interactions. These discussions to me are fun. They get me more into understanding this team better by the end of it. I'm going to come out of this better educated, understanding this team where everything sits. And it's you guys that make this thing go because of that. That's why I say that it is because it is you guys that make it go. I'm just a little bit of an arbitrator in here, but that's all I really do serve in that role that I do here. So thank you, me. I appreciate that donation. Really, really kind of you for all the support you've dropped recently. And I love our community that we've got here. We're able to keep these kind of discussions, even when we do have disagreement in this. It's always able to be respectful. Always a lot of fun. You always guys got me laughing. And I got a great job, what I get to do. And I'm very, very blessed to be able to do what I get to do here, me. And you're helping me be able to do it with those kind of donations. So thank you for that. I really, really, really do appreciate you. You've been unbelievable in your support lately. Just unbelievable. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation. Haley was a fan of Sean Alexander and Hasselhoff. That's girlfriend energy. Sorry, Haley, but you talking BS finance with you're adoring them is, let's not be mean here, Garth. Let's be nice. Let's be nice, Garth. We don't get mean. And there's nothing wrong with not liking Sean Alexander and Hasselbeck. They're good players. But I think Garth Haley's I think her instincts on this are probably pretty close to some of the things that I'm sensing too on this. So if she's wrong or out on this, then I would have a sense that maybe I would be wrong out on this as well on it. We don't know any of this for sure. I think we can preface all this by saying don't know it for sure, but we're hearing a lot more about this than we have before. And that's why this has become kind of a topic here today, is that this thing has come up in a way that has been unique versus years past, where this was not really as much a part that we were hearing about, that they were keeping it out. And maybe some of this is kind of leaking out from a Schneider camp where we're hearing more about this because of the fact he's frustrated by it. And he's like, look, I'm trying. I've got the stage all set, and she's yanking the rug out from under me right as we're about to do it. Could be some of that there too. Hopefully we will learn with time on this, Garth, one way or the other. But I think that it's one where I don't think that this is being pulled merely from left field. And there is a bit of an oddity here, no matter what's going on financially with this team and this sale, and whether or not the team is for sale or not going to be for sale, or the trust is saying it's got to be sold, but she's not selling it. She's not selling the Trailblazers, but they're supposed to be sold. So at the very least, there is a bit of sense here of we're kind of in a holding pattern here a bit from an ownership standpoint. You have somebody who's not going to be your long-term owner, but then at the same point in time isn't selling the team, but does want to sell the team, but just not right now. I don't know about that energy. I don't know about that energy over a span of like a 10-year period. Mark Sanchez, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, redirect some fan frustration to optimism. Mock draft number 2. That's a good time to roll that out here. We might not be able to get quite the third one in today. I ain't gonna lie to you on that, as we're definitely ticking down the hours here, and I've got about an hour and a half before I got to be over onto the round table and have those boys kick me in the shorts for an hour. Like, the Niners aren't doing anything, so at least they get to be in the same boat as us. All right, so we did a straight up draft earlier today, which was fun. And now we're going to do a draft for... We're going to do a draft for trading back. Okay, so let's get the trades going. First up is going to be... There we go. DK Metcalf. Boom. And 52. Offer trade. Oh, I should have done that differently. Yikes. Okay. And we're going to go with trade again. And what I'm going to do on this one, I know the Raiders didn't technically give up this, but I don't care what the Raiders are doing. So let's do this like this, and then let's factor in our compensatory picks with this one. Let's kind of give it, we'll do the Geno pick, but this is the way I can kind of build in the compensatories. Kind of. It's general. It's generalized. All right. Bevy of players. Now we're going even harder with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to trade back to 24. Oh, no, we're not. All right, so we go back to 29, we get 61.79, and we give them 82 back. Let's have some fun. This was going to be a crazy one, Mark, right? Okay. So we're picking now at the first round at 29. We've got a ton of picks here. I've got all of our picks basically in tow with a couple of extras now. 3 second-round picks, 2 third-round picks. We're locked. We're locked up. Let's see if we can move ourselves up back into the third. Second, I mean. I know I'm doing some kind of silly stuff here, but I like it. Let's go. All right. Here's what we end up with. 1, another 2, another 2, another 2, another 2, 2 3s, 3 6s, and a 7 is how I rolled this one. I'm going crazy on this mock. I'm going ape nuts. Okay. James Pierce, talented edge there at 29. That's good value. Nick Scorton, Greg Zabel there as well. Got our guard, get our guard center guy there at the jump. Start taking care of offensive line here from the rip. Man, I'm torn between Zabel and I'm torn between Besh. Those are my two guys here that I'm kind of. Zabel feels a little early to be grabbing him there, but man, you do get the offensive line handled quickly at the jump. I'm going to go Besh. We need wide receiver. All right, come back here. Bam, Zabel goes off the board. Yikes. All right, I did an RSA on the last one. Let's not do that one again. Let's mix it up here. Do her in the second. Oh, yeah, Lineman. Holy bully. RSA is still there. I'll go with RSA. Back here again. All right, so we got Schneider, Jack Besh. We've gone offensive heavy here off the jump. I do like Demetrius, but you don't really have much of a need. I'm not a JT Tuilamola guy. I like Kyle Kennard quite a bit. I'll go Kennard. Back here again. All right, so we got the offensive line once taken care of here. $5 million or Tate Ratledge is kind of the way I want to go with this one a little bit. Fannon's interesting there too. So we can come back on the tight end on this one. We got a couple options still there. To your offensive line wise, though, it's going to get real lean real quick. So Milliam, Marcus Embo, or Tate Ratledge. Already got kind of a tackle guard convert already. Let's get Tate Ratledge. Out. Boy, Savion Williams is there again in the third round. If he's there, I think you got to jump. Just the last pick for me for a minute. So I'm not going to be able to come back and get wide receiver addressed again in this draft somewhere else. Let's get the team weights going here, man. Let's bring the TCU boys back together again. Now we're going to roll for a bit. All right. On. Boy, Jake Majors again, man. He always shows up at this spot. There are a lot of great options at this point. Kind of is what it is. I'm not a fan of Tim Smith. I know it's similar to what I did last time, but we need a center here. And I think that there's kind of a drop-off down to Kendall once you go from majors. They got almost 100 spot difference on that, even to Cooper Mays. And Majors is my guy that's right there in this draft, 6th round. Let's go there and get it done. Okay, so we got our 2 receivers set. Besh, Shadir, Arisai, Kennard, Tate Rowledge, Taylor, Savion Williams, Majors. We come back with Catan Crawford. Go defense again. We're going to go Jalen Conyers. And get our fullback. Fullback type guy. Pierce is not going to last there, by the way. I'm not picking him because there's no chance he lasts that spot. All right. Yeah, let's go with Catan. And then we can come back with I've done Smail Mondin. Let's take a flyer on the guy that has some legal concerns, but maybe is not going to have legal concerns. You never know with those kind of guys. Alrighty. So this was my trade back, trade around, trade upside down kind of draft. That's how I rolled this one. That's how I rolled on this one. Okay. So, moved around some picks there with Metcalf and whatnot. Got a couple extra picks on Lineman. Well, I got so many picks I can't even get them on the screen for you guys. Okay. So we traded back out of the first. We got the back in the first round, put Jack Besh, got Shadur Sanders into the second round. We've got the Metcalf trades all there. Arisay is our tackle guard convert. You got the sure guard and Tay Ratledge, meat and potatoes. Know what you're getting with him in the second there. Kyle Kennard, like him a lot as a second round edge. Get him into the mix there. Your edge class, your edge group is great there, 4 deep. Mason Taylor, very safe tight end to take in this draft. I think I very much trust in what he's going to give you. Savion Williams, you get your Jack, you get Savion can do some X stuff. Zach can do some X stuff. They can kind of be interchangeable a little bit in how they play those positions. Majors, I think, is a fairly solid center prospect, a little bit better than what I had Olatimi at as far as his grade goes. So not ground shaking, but in the mix with some of the other guys you have in there to kind of see who can let the best kind of factor out of there. Jalen Conyers kind of can be that fullback type, I think, here for this team in that way. It gives you the second tight end. You need to get 2. Real deep tight end draft coming away with 2 would be really nice. And then Catan Crawford, like him as a safety. And then Kyron Lacey's got George Pickens like talent for the position, but going to fall because of legal concerns. So if you throw out the 7th round pick, 6th round pick, almost for nothing at that point for the upside of Lacey, I'll toss it for that. I'll throw down on that. Thank you though, Mark. And if we don't get to that third one today, we will definitely do we'll do the trade up scenario tomorrow first thing if it goes that route with it. But I'd feel probably pretty okay with this draft. I like Arisay a lot. And I think with Arisay and Ratledge, you have your 2 starting probably guards moving into the future at that point at least. Harry Morris says, I've been a Bears fan since 1976. I've seen much worse. There we go. There you go. Poor Bears. I like what the Bears are doing. War Chief says, Brandon, congratulations on 19,000 subscribers. When comparing some of my other pods, I like you, blow them out of the water without naming names, and that's amazing. Great job. Well, thank you, War Chief. I love what I get to do, man, and I'm I say it a lot, but it's really always at the forefront of my mind that I'm really blessed to do this. I'm chasing a dream in so many ways to be able to get to talk about football like I get to talk about. I love this sport. I love the depth of this sport. I love the layers it has. And today we see many of those layers on display. It's not just merely about what's playing on the football field. It's the team building concepts and the structure and how you move the money in different places and the type of players you target. And I find it endlessly interesting. I really do. And I appreciate that, man. Feels good to have crossed 19,000. We're on the road. We're rolling. Marcelo, Brandon, I've been scratching my head with our moves. It feels like something in between going for it and rebuilding. Smells like purgatory again. Thoughts? Thank you for your awesome work. Well, thank you, Marcelo. Indeed, I think that the team is taking, for the most part, seemingly the path of taking the step back this season by the looks of things. I do understand that the Sam Darnold contract, giving Ernest Jones an extension like you did to him, would maybe be not indicators of that. But I think when you do consider the fact that the Ernest Jones contract came in at a very, very feasible rate, you were more to where you wanted to give him as far as initial negotiations, you got more closer to where you wanted your numbers out on that deal, more than Ernest Jones got to where he wanted his numbers to be. And it was only a 3-year deal rather than a 4-year deal. So from a Seahawks perspective in that contract, they like that deal and how it sits. So I know that the Sam Darnold deal's got a little bit of that as well, but much like the Ernest Jones deal, it's a 3-year deal. It's a deal that you can get out after in 2 years if you want to very easily, and probably could even get out. We'll learn to find out the numbers eventually on this, but you'll probably be able to get out after even the first year with eating some dead money if you really wanted to go that route, which I don't think the team will do. But the point being is that they still will have maximum flexibility to move in different directions here into next offseason from these moves they make here and now this season. So I think that some of those do give you a little bit of a look of not fully taking the step back, but I think there's more of this that's in the lane of taking the step back more than it's being ardently being super aggressive and going for it. And so I can get you're getting a little bit of those vibes, valid. It's not all the way. We've only got a couple of tires on the ravine. The other 2 tires are actually on that freeway of take the step back. But we do have to see how they finish these moves up in alignment down the line here in free agency if this is going to fit the form. Because we do know this team can sometimes give you an indicator of this and then do something over here on the other side. But I do have a worry about the purgatory as well with this Marcelo, being that part of why I wanted to get more of a bridge quarterback where you're on a 1-year deal and you're giving him maybe $10 million versus giving this 3-year deal to Darnold is because you get the chance to get the offensive line built first and foremost. You're not putting the future commitment. There's not a dead money after year 2. It's not the right time. And you're really then buying into that one step back process that I was advocating for. But they've essentially kind of still done that. You know, it ain't the exact way I was foreseeing it, but it still has been kind of that. Dogzilla says Pumpkin has better sources than Schefter. Me says, we're really lucky domestic cats aren't any bigger than they are. Oh, I know. Oh, hell, if you've seen like a bobcat, for instance, you know, people that have bobcats have to get them declawed because you're going to lose fingers, you know, and they've got a little bit of that, not as domesticated. So they got that aggravation, wildness to them, and you're petting them and they, you know, they're loving it. And then they just turn around and they bite you and hard. So it's, we are very lucky in that way because they can be fierce little creatures for their size. Haley says, yeah, it's not allowed to be a 15-year-old in 2007, I guess, and have favorite players. Yeah, that's where with Garf Sanadon, it's look, everyone comes into their players that they, you know, I came in with Largent. I still hold on to that to this day, Haley. You know, that's being a fan. And it's where the thing with that too is I'd given a lot of people room on that when it came to Russell Wilson, because Russell was that guy for a lot of people. And that was where a lot of the endearment and the love for Russell came from, was that this is the guy that I first started watching football to and fell in love with the sport watching him play it, you know, and that perspective always got to be kind of kept in mind with this stuff. And it's what all of us have in our back pocket of our childhood coming up off with those players. Yeah. Zach says, if it was legal to domesticate a lion, I would. They seem to be able to be more almost domesticated a little bit in ways than like even those bobcats. I say, you see some of those guys interacting with lions. It's like they can kind of almost become like cats. Whereas you get like a bobcat, or you get like, I guess there are some mountain lion people that got mountain lion for pets too. Brian Blank. Haley has some of the best football knowledge on this channel. It's tough being a Seahawks fan. I've been one since the 1990s, and I've been very discouraged by the team many times. There's no shade. Amen. Well said, Brian. And I agree with you on that. He's got a smart football mind on this. Garth gets feisty sometimes, you know. Garth can get a little feisty. He likes to keep us on our toes. Oh, come on now. What's going on here? Let me look at my chat. No, hold on here. There we go. Goodness gracious. I missed a few messages there. It kind of got bumped. Funny money, I like conspiracy theories, but I love conspiracy facts. I do too as well. It's quite funny how a lot of times those theories can suddenly turn into facts down the line. What is once scoffed at becomes reality. Kind of the thing that people that knock on it don't tend to keep in mind with it. Oh, my chat is freaking the hell out of here. What is going on? Wait, what? Have the Seahawks made any moves today? No moves as of yet. Have a good one, Brian. Appreciate you, bro. Wait, what? Is Shedeur dropping to 50? Am I missing something? There's reports right now from NFL circles that there's some teams that don't have a first round. There's many teams that don't have a first round grade on Shedeur. I don't think he's going to get through the first round, but it does seem to be very straight. It does seem to be pretty much a fact at this point that Cam Ward is going to go ahead of Shedeur Sanders in this draft, and there also seems to be some uncertainty about where exactly Shedeur is going to land in this draft. We certainly have seen these guys at times have this happen, where they can dip. Yuquan, we have not signed any good offensive linemen yet. We've signed a lineman, but not good. Chris, I'd agree. I don't think Munden makes it past the 5th round. Chris says, wait, you took Sanders. I just lost respect. the fandom ain't set off already enough today, Chris. I'm trying to trigger them a little bit more. Zach says Williams could be a Debo Samuel type, but even better, Besh is basically Puka Light. I like it. I like it. And I'd be happy with that, Zach, on that side of it. Quan, I love the Sam Darnold signing, but I would lose my mind if we end up with 2 mid-ass O-lineman O-guards. Probably going to be the way it goes. Duran says Lacey's a killer. Nah. It's fair enough. His tape is so good. In 6th round, it would be tantalizing, but some of that would depend on where his legal situation is standing. Yuquan, I don't get it. We traded Geno, traded DK, released Raymond, released Lockett. Should we have kept a lot of money still to sign big name O-linemen? I thought we were going to, but that's not been the team's approach in the past. That's for sure, Yuquan. Dune Moose, would Tet be an upgrade over DK or just a suitable replacement? I would lean towards more suitable replacement than I would say upgrade, but I will say that my outlook with Tet of being a guy that to me is right in alignment with Mike Evans coming out. Mike Evans has been a better player than DK Metcalf. So that is my comp. Can he reach that place? That's going to remain to be seen, but I do think that upside does exist with Tet. So at the very least, I think you're getting the suitable replacement, but you could be getting beyond that too as well. Garth says the first day the NFL doesn't have a hard cap will be its ruin. I agree, Garth. I think it should be even more so now, a little bit more of the hard cap to this. I think this whole voidable year thing that the NFL is allowed to be opened up is not helping because now we're just creating more of the have and the have-nots. Those billionaire owners that can store and bend money into the future now have something over Bengals and Raiders and a variety of other teams. Haley says, I just want Haynes at left guard. He projects better there. Maybe they make that slide this offseason. Very well could be. Kyle Olave to Seattle. Olave coming off an injury-plagued season. Saints can't afford to pay him. Might be able to get him for cheaper than most, right? Yep. The cost would not be high for him. Probably like a 4th-round pick is the compensation the Saints could hope to get at this point. because he does have the concussion injury concerns that are going to follow him, and he's had quite a few concussions in his very short career. So there is that risk, but a 4th round pick is kind of the cost. Zach says, I hate all this shock hype, man. I've got him in the 4th round, Zach, but people are starting to really talk about him like he could get elevated above that. I've even heard some people mention about the possibility of him being a late 1st round guy, and that would be crazy town. Crazy town. Mark says, gracias, B, for doing the mocks. I really believe we're drafting Dart, Shock, or Milrow in the 3rd round, or trade up in the 2nd to get Shedeur, but only if he falls that far. Yeah, I only think Shedeur if he falls, to your point, Mark. And thank you again for that double dip big monster donation you dropped. Love doing mocks, man. I love doing mocks. And I could see any of those guys being potentially in play for kind of all sort of separate reasons. But I think there's a lot of quarterbacks, as I've thought for a while in this draft, that could really kind of catch John's eye and liking in a variety of rounds. Doesn't mean he has to reach up high to go get them. But there's a lot that are kind of, that guy's got a little something to him. Jack Maloney, would you trade for Hill? Only if it's cheap, but I do wonder if Miami would give him away. No, there's really not a way for him to facilitate that trade, Jack. He's pushed so hard to make sure that he is so well paid, and players seem to not kind of get this concept, and that you almost have to give money back at that point in order to get moved. And they'd have to eat so much dead money. The Miami Dolphins are in such a bad cap situation, they can't pull that off. So this is where Tyreek had to make his bed. You got to pick as a player sometimes. Do you want the money or do you want to win? And it's okay picking money. I ain't never going to rank a player over the coal for maximizing out what he can make during a pro career. Get every last dollar. You don't owe the team anything. Go for it. But don't also then play both sides of the fence saying, but I want to win. You decided you wanted the money. So it's just, I've looked at the contract, Jack. There's no real feasible way to move it unless he gives money back, which maybe that would be an indicator you're willing to go that route. Snail, thank you for the $2 donation, Snail. I don't want to hear a peep about home crowds now. No, I ain't going to blame any home fan crowds that don't want to go and like I've said earlier on the Snail, how you asking the fans to have generated excitement for this football team you're building. You trade away the stars. You make same mistakes you've made in the past. I mean, I'm hopeful for this team. I'm optimistic for this team, but I can understand how there's going to be a section of this fan base that's kind of middle fingered out on this one a little bit. And I really don't have any pushback for those people that think that way. I kind of go, I get where you're coming from. And you're right. How do you not expect people to be selling their tickets for profitability at this point, knowing they're going to go watch another product that's going to be potentially very similar to the one that they've seen in recent years, which didn't get people excited last year, didn't get people much excited the year before that. And I would tend to believe that it's probably not going to get people all that much excited for next year in addition to that, Snail. So valid. Dogzilla, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, is Will Huang attractive for in the later rounds? Don't know on Will Huang. Haven't had a chance to take a look at him quite yet, Dogzilla. I'm definitely still kind of getting into those late round territories, and I've been a bit in the holding pattern here because the last week and a half's been so action packed as far as actual Hawk news. So it's just not allowed me to get in there and do the full evaluations and kind of get in there and keep my list going here. So I'm a little bit behind the ball on that a bit, but I'll try to get around to him and take a look at him. Will Huang, add him here to my list. Huang. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation. Where did Haley go? She was so intelligent without subscribing or donating. She is a bathwater seller through our nation. Garth feisty today, huh, Garth? Oh, goodness. I know sometimes you choose violence. Some days there are violence from Garth. Thanks for the $5 donation. Alex says, I think John Schneider's time is limited. It might. Mr. Krabowski says, Lacey's going to prison. Laughing out loud. He could. I wouldn't take him, obviously, if he was due to go there. I would not do that. It's a terrible example of Haas, but I'll always remember we want the ball and we're going to score right before throwing the pick. Devastating at the time, but I love the swagger in retrospect. You got to love the swagger. You do, Haley, especially doing that in Lambeau. I mean, the sheer balls on the man to try to do that. You do kind of dig that part of him, but it was like, oh no. The second you hear him say it, you go, Matt, no. At least it's not just Dan Viennes reporting on the lack of the fourth year being extended. Corbin was reporting similar. Smoke to the fire, Haley, on this one. Or she says, with Shedeur Sanders comes Deion Sanders. I'd rather have Aaron Rodgers full-time in the locker room than a minute of Deion in the locker room. That's fair. That's fair for sure. Kick up, did we get better comp picks than we expected? We did kick up. We got, instead of it being a fourth and maybe a sixth and not the third, we got the third comp pick, and instead of it being six, we got 4 and 2 5s. So we came out like gangbusters in this one. Student says, all this big cat talk has me thinking of Mike Tyson in The Hangover. Tyson owning a lion back in the day. That's so fits to form. King says, PFF already has our comp picks, Brandon. Just has 6 instead of a fifth. We have 10 total. Ooh, okay. I did that a little bit weird then on my mock. A little weird. Yaquan, ideal scenario for me, please. Share your opinion on this. Sign Zeitler, Tevin Jenkins, or add 2 quality guards. Sign Stephon Diggs and Calais Campbell, and then draft wide receiver 3. I don't think Calais Campbell is going to come to Seattle unless you had a real contender ready to roll. And so I think that's really not going to be an option for Calais at this point, though I'd love to add him, Yaquan. I just think you would have had to make some bigger moves to bring him aboard. Stephon Diggs, I'm not interested in coming off the torn ACL. Can be a bit of a locker room cancer. Anyway, in addition to that, he's getting older as a player. Best days are probably behind him. I don't think he's got a lot to offer you on the field. Tevin Jenkins, all day. I love Tevin Jenkins' tape. I've loved him since his college days. You worry a little bit about the injury side of that, but look, you were going to worry about that with Will Freeze too. So you know, is it a concern? It's a concern, but he's the best guy available on the market right now. That's for sure. Randerson says, what would you think if we drafted Dart and set him behind Darnold? I could totally understand it, Randerson. I think they're taking the same approach they had 10 years ago with Wilson, Tavares Jackson, and Matt Flynn on the roster at the very same time. And I think that it was an approach that worked out once really well. Why can't it work out really well once again? And I think that Darnold contract is a lot more similar to the Matt Flynn contract than it is to us somehow supremely paying him all the money, so to speak. So I would be okay with it. I don't want to take Dart in the first round, Randerson. I'd like to avoid that. That's a bit too high for me with him. But I can completely get behind making him a bit of that potential quasi quarterback of the future. And King Bomber, I'd love to get Calais if we could, man. But I think he's really going to be looking for what he determines to be a sure contender. Like that guy going to the Eagles, for instance, on a 1-year deal. Definitely could see it happening. Really, I want Zeitler, but who knows if he's willing to move to South Alaska. Exactly. K-Jab Sam Levette blew my SIL down for spring ball. Pretty unhumble brag. Alex says Shedeur will go to the Raiders at 6 or Jets at 7. He won't get past those two teams. Certainly would be surprising to see him dip. It is just that you hear so much, Alex, about him and having such a variance of opinion out there in NFL circles. But I could definitely see that be the case. Yuquan, D-Hop going to the Ravens. Makes some sense. Team Bomber, we need to sign someone. We need to, don't we, King? Sam Hutchinson, thank you for the $5 donation, Sam. Hope you're having a great day out there. How tough you think the negotiations right now between John and one free agent he plans to sign for 1 year, $3 million? Think eventually the player will fold? No, because I think what eventually happens on this, Sam, I mean, the player will fold in the respect of, I think when John offers a 1 year deal, here's what we'll give you. And I think that he's probably going to offer it with a pretty educated guess that this is about as good as you're going to get, and that we're not increasing that offer beyond that. It's a take it or leave it. And I guess some of the evidence of this would be more that you've given these 1 year offers out. It would tend to be what would, be the official start of free agency tomorrow, but it would be essentially 3 days into free agency where you've already gotten through wave 1. You're partially through kind of wave 2 of free agency at that point, and you're at that time of you're at that territory with these guys where the cap's being eaten up in all these other places. It's getting to be a little more limited. You're forcing the player's hand to take that 1-year deal at that point, Sam. So the timing of it, as much as anything, speaks to it. But I don't think that it's intense negotiations, because I think he just calls his people and say, we'll give you a 1 at 5. That's where we're at. We're not moving off that. Call us back if you're ready to go with that. He probably has like 10 of those calls out there to various agents with various players, and it's like the first 4 or 5 that reach back out to him and say they'll take it is who he's going to jump with. I bet it would be kind of as simple as that. But I do think that the next thing you're going to see now come down is probably you might get this Tevin Jenkins deal done or something like that, but it's probably more like Zeitler, Dalton Risner, more 1-year deal. Those guys will be on 1-year, 2-year deals at the most, and then another 1-year deal across the line in certain places. 1-year deal for a nose tackle, 1-year deal for a linebacker, 1-year deal for a cornerback. I think you'll probably see these kind of positions addressed in that way. Just a guess, though. In Bomber, breaking news: we need to sign someone. Man. Tucker says maybe all this dead money pissed Jody off. Can't blame her for being mad. Unacceptable if she won't spend anymore. I would struggle to understand quite why from her perspective on that. Dead money is a part of football business. Every team goes through it. Every team's got to deal with it on every one of their caps. And while it's not a cheap amount of money, it's not over the top. Niners are sitting on $77 million. We're not up at that territory of it. So it definitely isn't good. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think it's more money out of her pocket if there's dead money on the books. And it's a bit of the normal process of business. CR says, B, please do mock draft with database for once. Okay. They mean the PFN one? I'll try to do that one tomorrow. We're going to be running out of time today where I got to bounce out today because I've got the roundtable show at 6:00. So I've got to go run and get some dinner and bounce around on that. But we'll do the different mock draft. I know some of you would prefer the other one more. So I'll do the different one tomorrow. We'll lead up with that tomorrow when we kick off and kind of get through some of the news, because we'll be going live tomorrow too as well. Well, Huang does score a lot. Okay. I'm stoked to check him out. Daryl, I may be in the minority, but I think we can still build a good O-line with the draft capital we have and hopefully development from Christian Haynes. You absolutely can, Daryl. You've got as much draft capital just about as you have ever had here over these past few drafts, and that's saying something because we had the Russell Wilson returns, which were huge, which were great. And so there's a lot of picks here. On top of that, Daryl, as I've talked about, you really do have a collection of guys in that second or third round on the interior of the offensive line that are guys that should be guys that are having a pretty good floor. You kind of know what you're going to get in them. There's not as much a risk, who should be scheme fits to what we want to run, and should be still guys that have a little bit of upside to them in addition to that. A Donovan Jackson, Tate Ratledge, a Gray Zabel, Wyatt Milliam, Jonas Savainia. You can kind of go through a lot of these guys. Will be in that kind of collection of picks in there, and you take 2 of those guys, and I think that there's a lot of reason to have optimism that those 2 guys can come in and potentially be immediate starters for you. I think there's a lot of reason to have optimism that those 2 guys can be better players on the interior of that offensive line, as prospects even, than Christian Haynes was. And that's not to sell the boat on Christian Haynes and to say that he can't maybe come back and find his footing here eventually on this. It's just more speaking to the good level of talent in this draft when it comes to the interior offensive line in that section of the draft, specifically in the second and third round area, Daryl, is where it's at. So you can do that in this draft and do it because the talent's there and because you have the multiple picks there to make it happen. You absolutely do. That's not pie in the sky stuff. It absolutely can. You are going to be then reliant on young guys hitting that ground running and being good if there's any real hope for 25, being good. But it's also beyond just the short-term outlook of it. If you look at it the long-term and drafting these guys and drafting a lot of these guys and building your lineup through the draft at the front and really mainly, that's a smart approach. That's an approach that can bear out really nice results. Sometimes you got to wait for those results into the long term, but they can tend to bear out really nice results. Yuquan, thank you for reading all the chat comments and your deep analysis. My pleasure, Yuquan. I love where you guys are coming from, and I always appreciate this conversation. especially as we keep it respectful and on point, and we're all just trying to kind of figure it out. That's what we're all doing here. And I love this in that way. So it's a really great place because we can kind of keep in that mode, even when it's a day like this. If you consider it Yaquan, where there is so many people that you know are so emotional today, whether you think they're right or wrong, that's where people's heads out. And I think it speaks to how strong our chat and our community is, that even with people feeling the way they are with that we're keeping this in proper perspective. We're keeping it still respective amongst each other. And I'd love to see that. I really do. Judah J Talks. Thank you, Judah, for the 50. I said $50 donation from Judah. That's a great drop from you. Thank you so much. I salute you. Says, you and Rob Stanton are truly the best there is, man, and ain't nobody refuting that stuff. Can't wait until you go national because it's just a matter of time. Shalom. Do a show together and watch the world pay attention. Well, I am definitely overdue, Judah. To your point on this, somebody was bringing it up yesterday, and I've definitely dropped the ball on that because I've wanted to bring on Rob here over onto the channel, just haven't gone around to it. It's been kind of the worst thing I do on the channel and getting people on because I get lost in the sauce, head in the clouds kind of, and kind of forget it, slips the mind out there a little bit. But Rob has done some really great work for many different years, and Rob is a guy that has had at times the fan base get very hard on him for not taking as much of the positive outlook and the approach of the teams that people would want him to have. And he's been proven right in a lot of ways in his outlook of team and the way that this has played out through this process, to give him the props on that. But he covers the draft as closely as anybody else. In addition to this, he's been doing it for years. So he gives you a lot of perspective too, of having done it for many years and having those. There's nothing like having different drafts that you can use as measuring points for the given draft you might find yourself in. Excuse me. But I'll make it a priority here to get him up over here, Judah, and do some discussions with Rob about what we're seeing with this team, and especially in regards to the draft, because I know he's going to be well acclimated to all the guys that are in this draft and that we're going to be potentially looking at. I really thank you for that big monster $50 donation. And I really do appreciate it. And if the national audience ever comes a calling, man, Judah, you know that I will jump. You know that I'll be on it if they ever do. And that's a very kind of you to say so on that. I'd love to be able to have that opportunity if it does present itself. But I'll tell you this, if I only ever just get to do just this, if this is only the final home for me, nothing wrong with that either. That's a hell of a way I would love doing this with you guys years in the future if it's only just here too. Because like I said above on this, we got such a great community and such cool people that come in this chat. And it's not the days where things are going great and everything's wonderful and the teams are making no-brainer moves and you trade for a Joe Burrow. That's not where you learn about the salt of your chat in your community. Those are not the days. The days you learn about it are days like this. Frustrations and frustration. A bad signing here, bad signing there. Something that looks bad on the surface of it. And that tests people out in that way. And so people to hold the line today in that way and to maintain it, and especially yesterday was the same way. And maintaining a level-headed approach to this, even the emotionality of it, and even the love of this team and wanting to see this team, come on, guys, but still kind of taking a step back and go, all right, I feel the way I do, but we can still kind of talk about this from all the different angles and try to figure it out a little bit more thoroughly. But thank you, Judah. I really kind of you. That's a big time donation on your part. I really do appreciate it. You allow me to do what I get to do here, and I thank you for it, as I am very blessed. Very, very blessed. Kyle says, bring in Amari Cooper. He wanted to get paid last year, and the Bills didn't use him well after trading for him. Could get him cheaper than most receivers, 2-year, $18 million. Probably he's on a 1-year deal. He's a little bit like Kupp at this point. It is going to be probably a 1-year, 8 or 9. So you're going to give a little bit of money to do it, but it is only on a 1-year kind of deal. I haven't been the biggest Amari guy on board with that, as he did kind of look like he was a little bit of a spend fighter a little bit last year. Just kind of the way he was moving and body language wasn't great. But getting a veteran presence in here, especially if you're going to go get a couple of young receivers in addition to that, could be helpful in helping their development and advancement. Michael says the Raiders are probably going to take Genti. I'm staying with Genti on the Raiders until I see differently. I've got to sense myself that Genti's just going to, Coach Carroll loves running backs, and you give him a running back draft like this with Genti staring him dead in the face. I don't think Carroll can help himself. Meister Kane says, Judah, I dig your words. Not much of a stand fan, but definitely appreciate and respect his opinion. Yeah. And it's as I can attest to this, Brendan was dealing with this yesterday when it wasn't just him being super positive, and he was having to talk about some difficult matters yesterday and his outlook of things. And that I think people don't always think about this a lot when they get their hankles up with content creators getting into sort of a negative side of things or talking about things that aren't just bright and shiny, is that it's not for the betterment of our channel or our whatever for us to be negative. It doesn't help in any real way. There's not well, you get subscribers, that's going to peel you back. That's going to a lot of times do you harm. But if what is your guiding force is to be truthful and honest with your audience, to not, dress them up or gaslight them or make them think what you're not honestly thinking in your mind, then that's the choice that you have to kind of make in doing this. And it's not an easy always choice, because when you take that other road, you're going to pay the price for it when you're going to be honest. It comes with a price. And Rob's had to weather that. Brendan was yesterday. I've done it too. But you just fall back in alignment of saying at the end of the day that people are going to value ultimately the fact that I was being truthful with them and honest. And maybe it wasn't what they wanted to hear, but they'll come down the line, year down the road, and go, well, at least he was being honest and truthful. And hey, he might have even have been right in addition to it. CJ Kurzman. Ooh, I missed that there, CJ. Where's that? CJ says, Brandon, Cam Miller from North Dakota State, biggest sleeper quarterback in the draft. Add him to your list and check him out when you get to before the draft. Could be a steal. I think I have looked at Cam. I do believe I've looked at my Cam. You're going to like this one. Could have sworn I took a look at this guy. I guess I hadn't yet. I have him on my list for sure. I have him on my list 100% for sure. I thought that was the guy. I think I lost my notes that I had on him. My computer reset on me, I think. So he's, I'm almost positive it's this guy. So he's like my thing with him, I remember looking at him actually. And CJ, I thought that he looked like I've called him like John Elway went to a Maori tribe, and instead of it just being the head that got shrunken down, it was the whole body. And he moves like John. He's got the same gait of John. He's got the same throwing motion of John Elway, but he's like 6'1" without the arm strength. But fun late round guy, CJ. It was just as a kid that grew up on Elway though, and I don't see these comps come out as far as just the way he moves, and Elway had kind of that pigeon-toed kind of walk to him on the football field a little bit. This kid's got a little bit of that same kind of vibe to him. I don't know if let's see if you're feeling that. Minty says any O-lineman that wears glasses, he's a dog. Oh yeah, your badass factor goes up by at least 25% with glasses as an O-lineman. Has to. In Chin Chi, thank you for the $10 donation. I really appreciate you for that. In Chi says, hey Brandon, what are your thoughts on Nemhauser and Jeff Simmons? Feels like you guys should have crossed over by now. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you very much. I think that those two guys are great at what they do, 100%. I don't know where the standing is right now on this, and I don't want to pass it off as I'm not unwilling, because I would completely be willing on that one with it. But the sense that I had kind of gotten on this with at least as far as from Hawk Blogger side of this, and I could be proven wrong with it. We'll see where they're at with it. But I was literally in the chat at one point with it where, they weren't as much, he's not as much a fan, I think, to the side of what I do or what Brendan does, or one of the two, both of us, I don't know. Because somebody was literally asking him in his chat at one point with a donation. I think it was our own Garth, actually. Garth asked him in his chat on one day about having us on and doing a collab. And I happened to be watching on it, and I saw that, his response was not too much of a fan of them, which is fair. That's all good on that. And they have a lot of other guests on there, so they might feel like they've got enough guests that roll through there that it's not as much of a necessity on it. But that would be kind of the one thing I would say on it, is if he's obviously not feeling this side of things and that's his standpoint on it, then it gets hard to kind of collab if that's your outlook of it, a little bit. And I don't know if that's fully the case. I'm definitely open to do it. I'd love to do a collab. It does nothing but good for all of us to do these kind of things. I think cross-pollination is nothing but a good thing. But I think that they do great work. And Jeff's got some great takes. Nemhauser's, I think it's been really cool to see him be able to go and do this as a full-time job. You go from doing it on the side. I was at that same place where you're sort of just jumping off the cliff and you're like, well, here we go. And it's a moment where you have a little bit of breath and you're like, I don't know if it's going to work. And, he made it work. And you have to make it work by, busting your ass and putting in that time and effort. And there's no shortcuts to doing it on it where you think, hey, it's a fun job, and it is a fun job, but it's a lot of work. And now you're signed up to doing that if you want to make this work. And he's done that. And it's been obvious that he's taken those steps to make that happen. And you got to laud him for it, because I can attest to the fact it ain't easy. It is a lot of work in that way. It's fun. It's rewarding. You love doing it. You got to get in for that signing. And in this day and age, of course, we know there's not a lot of people there that always work as hard and put in that kind of effort. But I would love to work with those guys in the future. And I will try to see, in regards both with Rob and this, that maybe there's an opening to kind of reach out to them and see if they are open to do it now with where they stand on it. But I think that they do great work, NG, for sure. Thank you for the donation, man. Very, very kind of you. We've got a lot of great content creators. I don't do it to blow smoke on that. I think that we have really cool, respectful people really trying to do a great job. We get new people coming onto the scene over the last couple of years, and they've picked up that baton and they've run with it really hard with that as well. I think that it's really cool from my standpoint to see that we've got so many people that are doing it right. Now, they're not out there to troll. They're not out there to create clickbait stuff. They're just trying to report and discuss and analyze the team. They really come from it, I think, from that real true standpoint of things. And I love that, because I don't think that all the fan bases out there with their content creators are doing that type of stuff. There's kind of a mix. There's kind of wars going on and stuff. Kick up, who is better in terms of being a player, Will Freeze or Tevin Jenkins? Tevin Jenkins. Tevin Jenkins, former first-round pick, tackle, convert to guard. It's, he would be probably assigned to now in front of Will Freeze, if not for the very deep injury history that he has. No real crazy injuries where he's dealing with some chronic this, no ligament there. It's more of just, it has been popping up consistently over his career where it's always something, it would seem like. Brandon Thomas, thank you for subscribing to the channel, Brandon Thomas. I appreciate you doing that. This name goes hard. You have also subscribed to the channel. You guys are really very kind for doing that. I really do appreciate you for doing that. If you could for me, folks, do please join him. If you haven't already, join Brandon and This Name Goes Hard and subscribing up to the channel, as we're trying to get on the road here to 20,000. Like to get there this offseason if we can. You can help us get there today by subbing on up as they have. But thank you guys for doing that. I really, really do appreciate you. Kick Up says Tevin Jenkins and Mekhi Becton, and I'll leave you alone, John. Bet. I'm with you, Kick Up. I'm with you. Power Code says every free agency, every time. The same old story. Indeed. Name Goes Hard. You do think the most realistic free agent signing is at this point? Who do you want? Tevin Jenkins is the guy that I'd want at this point. Tackle, guard, convert from college to guard. So he's got the mobility in there that you're going to want for the scheme. He's an ass kicker in there. He's a guy that'll chew nails and spit out glass. He's got that kind of mentality he brings, which you love to. So I'll take the risk on the injury flyer with him at this point. He's by far the number one guy that I would look to target as the remaining people. He's really good. Just about the health with him. Funny Money says Cooper Kupp's my second cousin. Well, tell him to get over here, Funny Money. Tell him to get in here. Come back home. Tell him you can always come home. Jackson Smith and Jigba. Me and Kupp been talking since he got released yesterday. Jackson, please make it happen, okay? The fan base needs the win right now, okay? You know what I mean? The fan base needs the win right now. So if you can make that happen, dude, that'd be great. And also, I need you to come on the channel if you could. Maybe bring, you don't even bring Kupp. Just you come on the channel. Let's talk. Let's get this figured out, You can bring a lot more fans and put a lot more fans at ease here. Plus, we can get them hyped up for next year. We need to do both of those two things. But Kupp would be great, man. You and Kupp, Savion Williams, little Jack Besh. A mill here, a mill there. Make a few moves. I dig the Hawks. Brandon, come on, Zeitler. We already spent money on Tomlinson. Wheelchair and assisted living. That'll cover Zeitler. Hey, we don't even have to buy a new wheelchair, man. We just used Tomlinson's wheelchair. It's already at the VMAC. Daniel W., it's not that we can't build a good O-line with the draft. It's more, why did we clear cap space for it if we aren't going to spend it? Why trade DK specifically if we aren't going to reallocate his cap? All very fair questions all the way down the line, and I would echo those in addition to that, Daniel. The why is the part that doesn't quite, I don't know. Yeah, and I don't have even a good explanation either. It doesn't add up. It's you're seemingly doing this thing on this side, but you're not bringing the culmination of it to bear. There is no process of fulfillment. Funny Money says we're actually related. Ooh, nice. Well, Funny, let's get him on we need to get on the channel, man. I think it's more player interviews. All you players, Jackson Smith, you guys are all so shy. Hard to pull. I know you guys are all busy. You know, you're living the dream. I get it. Dune Moose, Jody, and John are pulling a major league strategy. Am I gonna have to grab the major league shot from that where the major league ball coach comes out and they've got an owner in this? If you haven't seen Major League, it's an owner that is her husband dies, and so she inherits the team, but she wants to move the team. So she's going to make the team suck as bad as possible so that the team can be moved. Players figure it out midway through the season, and then the head coach gets this cardboard cutout of the woman, and then every time they win, they take off a piece of the clothing on the deal. Like, maybe I got to put Jody Allen's head on that shot from that movie and put it up on Twitter. Be like, Seahawks locker room next year. Great reference there, dude. I am kind of getting those vibes a little bit, you know? A little bit. Kieran sees even if Jan Schneider doesn't value guards, dude never should have ever said anything about it to the world. This is what you call playing yourself. It's not a good look in retrospect to those words, Kieran, and they loom large over the top of him, especially Kieran when he doubles back down to him a couple of weeks ago with more interviews where he's saying basically more of the same, huh? You're absolutely on the button on that one. AK Big 19K. Let's go, AK. Let's go. I am thankful they didn't bring back Lakin, Stewart. You're right about that. Dog Jealous says Stanton has been pounding the table for months to sign 1 or 2 interior offensive linemen in free agency. I've been pounding that same table, man. I broke my hand long ago pounding that table. And that's why I say, yeah, he's got a good outlook on this team. He's definitely been proven right in retrospect in a lot of his outlook on the team in certain ways. And, you know, when you're turning over things that aren't always as positive with it, it's not always as fun, but it's true and it's right. Zero Bravo, Stan loved Will Levis. I did too, though. I got that one wrong as well. I missed on that. Stewart, Elijah Moore would be an interesting pickup on the cheap. Wouldn't be too bad. Nicholas's Raiders are definitely taking Genty, no doubt there. It's just, you can see this one coming from a mile away, couldn't you, Nicholas? Carroll's got a type. Carroll's got a way. That's worked for him in the past. It ain't a bad thing. He just did. He has it. If it's whatever you have the most supporting evidence of, Stanford for more supporting evidence than most commentators. If you disagree with him, you need to provide equal or more supporting evidence. True. True. Peter Van Gent, I was prepared for the disappointment of not doing the double dip. Wasn't prepared for this. Hard to have faith in a greater plan from a team that had an embarrassing O-line for a decade. Very good points, Peter. I share your same outlook on this in so many ways, and if not in entirely the same way, and that this has been a problem for 10 years, and you're going back down the exact same road to an exact same road that you've done so many of these prior years that have led to that catastrophe of a situation. And maybe it will change this time. Maybe you can have so many draft picks that you can hammer the line so much to be able to overcome it that way. But it is hard to drum up optimism that that will work, being that that's not an approach that hasn't worked prior, so now it suddenly will. And I think that's the fair part of this within the criticism. It remains to be seen if there aren't some more moves that do come in alignment with this, some additional stuff to maybe make this make sense, maybe even a trade. Maybe we see the rare lineman-like trade that's suddenly presented out there. But as it stands right now, it's definitely a little bit of a confusing process that they've undertaken here. Oh, there's a for him to agree there thing. Jackson, who do you want John to draft? I think Jackson has got to be going for. I mean, there's a chance you reach a little bit for need because we got to get some receivers around you out there, but you got to go. I think it's defensive player because you want to go value, Jackson. You want to take the highest valued guy you got on that board, and you really want to be like a fundamentalist about it. Like you go, we do not get away from this. Maybe later in the draft, but early on, not. And what you saw last year was all those offensive players have a run on them. And then in your value board had a best defensive player up on your board when you were picking. So Kenneth Grant, Michael Williams, a couple of these guys dropped down to us. I'm going to have a hard time passing on them versus an offensive player, even if the offensive player is more of the need. I think it'll go that way too, Jackson, because there's just a run at the top of the draft as far as on offensive players. AK says, JSN, you got any words for Lenore? Talking ish on IG about you. Jackson says, AK, nah, he going to see me when we play. He's really yappy, Jackson. He's not even in the yappy of the way of the Sherman part. He's just a lot of. I was saying that he goes by the nickname Jackson of he goes by the nickname of Hyena, but it should be more like the Chihuahua. We just need to get Kenneth Walker to flip him again. Flip him for real. It's more my nose, Alien Wizard. I'm getting an allergy, so I'm trying not to sniffle when I'm trying not to do a lot of a sniff right into the mic. Cooper's B, I heard John Schneider only offered Pumpkin 15 salmon trips a day for her lifetime contract. She won't go below 25. What are your thoughts? Well, she's a big girl, and she's very hungry. 15 is like barely going to satiate her. Can't blame her for wanting more. Can't blame her in the least. The Big E, I wonder if they were really scared of medicals, so they were waiting for new league year to get physicals to make sure they're as good as far as that goes. Could be. Certainly with Will Freeze, you had a little bit of worry, I think, with the tibia, that thing was fully good to go, and you want to probably take a look at that one a little bit. But that could be a factor here. Could definitely be a factor. BB says, I was thinking, man, John is really not signing anybody. What the hell? Laughing out loud. But in hindsight, I do see us paying one vet lineman, but addressing everyone else in the draft. GM is more than just throwing money people. Well said. Well said. And just because they're not spending money doesn't mean that this is definitely all tanked out, that there's no chance for this team to find still the solutions and answers that we're looking for to get this team in the right place to contend. So you do have a lot of draft picks. You do have a lot of ways of doing it. It would have been nice to get these taken care of a bit at the forefront so that you could really set up the draft to go hog free and wild and pick wherever you want to pick and stay truly in that value-based standpoint I was just talking to Jackson about, where you're just in that value-based mold. You're not reaching for need. Who's the highest guy you got on your value-based on your board? And if you go into the draft with your needs fulfilled, you can operate from that mentality not only early on in the draft, but throughout the draft. And that is what builds the best draft classes. And that is what builds the best teams in addition to it. Be calm, see clearly. Thank you for the $2 donation. He's got a question for you, Jackson. Says, who is the cutest player on the team? I say JSN. That'll be one for Jackson on that one. Thank you, be calm. Rodney, thank you for the $5 donation, Rodney. Good to see you in the house, bro. Looks like John is scraping the bottom of the barrel again. Some things never change. I'm on the Fire John train. We come through the end of this, and he's going to build up another offensive line like the one that he has by and large built for 10 years. It does get a little bit harder to be supportive of John at that point, because it starts to look like this is an Achilles heel that comes out to bear over and over and over again, and you just cannot find a way to get around it. And I think that that's a pretty fair criticism when you're talking about a decade-long problem that's been consistently there over that 10-year span. And we're watching him seemingly walking down that line once again and heading down this approach once again. And it could work. And this might be finally the year where it all clicks in. And he's like, look, no, we've been smart in our approach. It's just kind of the bad luck of the situation that's knocked us off our spot. But we have been right. We've been right on this one. Maybe this is the year that you do learn that he is going to be right on that one finally. I'd love to see it. Love to see it. It'd be great. But it does get harder when you have a bit of that track record you're working off with, which has been so long as far as seeing the same thing playing out again and again and again and again. We'll see with him, though. We will see how he rolls with it. But I'm not going to push back against anybody that finds themselves at their wits end if it is the way that this goes. Because you're not simply operating of someone in the moment. You're not operating just out of emotionality. You're operating, looking at it and loving this team and following this team and saying, man, I've seen the same thing for 10 years come up. And if that's not a right to get a little frustrated and angry at your team, what is? I mean, at what point do you have a right then to get that frustration up? If not for this. The Big Bean says, John always says medical is a big thing when he looks at the draft prospects. So that's my thought for Jenkins, because he's hurt a bit. Yep, definitely could be with Jenkins. And certainly his talent's much better than me lasting this long, even through just the first day of free agency, which would be more food for what you're saying on that, the Big Bean. Like more, that would support that part of it. And could be what, and eventually just has them not even in on Jenkins at all. And you can understand it. There's a reason that Chicago's letting him go, despite the fact that he is so well graded and he has played so well. They don't have a lot of trust in those medicals holding up in the long term. I think that's fair. Dick, this is Brandon. Oh my God, mock drafts are so much more fun when you don't have to worry about filling the O-line. 100% agree. Yeah. Because that's what happened to me in my mocks today. I go with that first pick and I'm like, yeah, I'll take that one. But then I'm getting into the second, third round, and I'm like, yeah, I better double dip here. And now I'm picking for need, and I don't like that. Emerald A's trade pick 18 for extra picks since this is a deep draft on both O and D lines. Your thoughts, Mr. Walken? Yes, what you want to do here now is this. Listen to me, please. Trade back, first round, more picks, second, third round, as many as I can, all the time. 4, 5, innumerable extra picks, second, third round. Where is the strength, the power, this draft? The strength and the power, the second, third round. That's what you want to pick. I'm telling you now. More picks there, yes. Move back, first round, yes. I say so. I say yes. Watkins a big on moving back. Joey Enriquez, thank you for subscribing to the channel, Joey. Nut Martin, thank you as well for subscribing to the channel too. Welcome aboard, you guys. I appreciate you subbing on up to the channel. PP, the rebuild, retool could be a 2 to 3 year process. Looking at the Vikings and Bears, they're trying to compete now. True enough, PP. Definitely the looks have kind of taken a bit of a step back on this one, which is something that I was advocating for. It's a little bit part of why I'm not necessarily in the same frustrated point as some, though I understand the frustration. I'm not quite to the same realm of some point of where others are at because I was certainly advocating for that. Seattle KO, yes, that's my walking. Some think it's good. Some say no. That's not good. Don't do that, please. I do get requests. Isn't the key to walking one word? Yes, but then you do it too much as a pause, and that's all you're doing, Chris, in the impression. The advanced way is flow it together. I see you. That's where you take it up a notch. All right, guys. We are about 20 minutes out here from heading on over to heading on over here to the roundtable, NFC West roundtable. So if you aren't subscribed over there, we do this once every other week, and we're of course going to have our interactions here on the other week actually on the channel. But today's show is actually going to be on the NFC West roundtable. So if you guys want to join me over there, I will be there at 6 o'clock here, bouncing over there, as we're going to do, I'm sure, be talking about free agency, and they're going to be raking me over the coals on, I'm sure, some of our moves here the Seahawks have made. And okay, I'm here for it. I'll fight those battles. Okay, I'm bringing the sword and shield tonight. Can't speak. So please do join me over there. Jackson Smith, man, thank you for joining us over there. Glad to hear you're keeping your head up out there on the side of things, and hopefully you know that there'll be a bright future in here for you, and you're getting paid after next year. You know that's happening now, at least that. Huh? I appreciate you guys today for watching and checking out all the way through. I really want to thank you guys too for the real fine discussion that we were able to have. I know it can get a little bit hot at times in here with having so much difference of thought and outlook on this team, outlook on John, outlook on their approach. And so I really do, I know I say it often, but it's something that I really do think about and hope for that we can keep in here as much as possible, which is just a respectful nature to each other, even in that disagreement. And that the understanding of if there is some negativities on some days, it'll go like that some days. But there's going to be a whole lot more positivity too on the other side of this that's going to much more overwhelm that to the other side of things. So at least from my perspective of it, we just got to sometimes roll with the punches. Sometimes there's some good to talk about. Sometimes there's some relative bad to talk about. But there's always, I think, a bright future with this team because we're not in hell. We're not the Cowboys with Jerry Jones. We're not with some horrific owner. So there's still a lot of reason here to feel very encouraged about where this team's at and where they're going. I know we didn't have any moves today. We still have a lot of money to spend, and there's a lot of creative ways to go and improve this roster as we go forward, including trades. Just see what John does now as he pivots here to the next angles of it. I'll be back on tomorrow. I would anticipate with the actual true start of free agency, we'll hear about some more deals coming down from Seattle. I doubt it will necessarily be big time deals, though we'll see probably a little bit more of the low end deals, but we will get some action. We will get some movement from this team. We'll get a better understanding of truly, really the full approach here, as it still is just slightly murky at this point. We're still having the money to spend, not really making any moves, but we'll know a little bit more for sure once we get to tomorrow. Thank you guys for watching today. Thank you for all of the donations. We had $50 drops on here from me and Judah Talks and so many more. All of the new subscribers, thank you very much as well for joining up here. That's huge for me. I'd love to get to 20,000 subscribers here this year. So you joining up, hitting that like button as you guys are, big time for me here and helping me in that way as we just crossed 19,000 yesterday and we are motoring along. So Welcome to all the new subscribers. Thank you for joining aboard. Thank you for the great discussion. Thank you for all the support. Back over here onto the roundtable right now, but we will be back tomorrow. We'll be back on Thursday with the BNB show. We are loaded to the hilt this week. We will keep you guys abreast as to what's going on. You just ride with me at the same time as we go through this. So back soon in just about 20 minutes. But until that time, it's only 20 minutes, but keep the faith. I know some of you are a little shaky right now. I know a little bit of you are on edge right now. Okay, I get it. I get it. Like I said, well-founded. But keep that damn faith. Keep that faith. Hold true. Let's see how this plays out and see if we don't just maybe turn out on the right side of this when it's all said and done. My name is Brandon. My name is Brandon Kane. This is the Hawks Nest. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. But beyond all that, don't you ever forget, even after a start of a frustrating offseason, we've just begun this thing. Let's ride out. Let's see where it goes. Keep the faith and don't forget. Go Hawks.